So I know a few things about Tracy after all these years. Tell me a little bit about yourself. I know, do you do QHHT? Okay. And
I'm a
how did
level two
okay.
QHHT practitioner. I have other forms of hypnosis that I've studied with other teachers. So I practice QHHT. Career per se, or what I've worked for the past decades is in education. So I was a teacher long time ago, had my kids, and so I gave up going to the classroom because I needed to take care of my own kids. But I started working for corporations. So for the past 20 years, I've been doing pretty much online learning education, although online learning didn't really become a thing until like 10 years ago. So it used to be print and presentations to do train the trainer, etc., all of that. So I used to work for a medical device corporation, creating educational content for their products to train the doctors, the healthcare providers, the families, and the patients. And so I did that for a couple of decades already until recently. Mhm.
And then you're like, I'm out. I want to do something else, huh?
Yeah, well, it was one of those things that I was really asking for the universe for, oh, I just want to do my own thing. I want to be on my own. I don't want to work for corporate. And boom, I get laid off. And then I'm like, what? No, I miss my salary.
Be
I
careful.
miss having
Be careful what you ask
command.
for, right?
I know.
Mhm.
I know. So I'm recovering from that because it was just recent, a couple of months ago. Yeah, I'm recovering from the fear of having the steady paycheck and all of that. But fortunately, I also do other things. I had the opportunity to work with Nancy, Nancy Vernon, Dolores' daughter, and I do audiobooks. I translate them to Spanish and then I do the audiobook. So far I'm translating the fifth of the convoluted universe. I've translated other two or three, the Jesus and the Essenes, the Legend of Star Crash, They Work with
Oh wow.
Jesus. Yeah, so I've done translating them to Spanish. I think I'm on my eighth book
Wow.
from Dolores,
I think
and
you passed me up.
audiobooks. Huh?
I think you
Yeah,
passed me
and the
up on that one.
audiobooks, I think this is the fourth or fifth that I'm doing. Also Dolores Cannon books
Nice.
into Spanish. Yeah.
Okay. So it sounds like
So yeah,
even
that's
when we
pretty
talk
much
about
what
the
I
lowest
do. And
can,
then, I have my little side gigs on doing social media, multimedia design, video editing, etc. Voiceover acting for some commercials or other movies.
read all those books, you're very knowledgeable about Dolores Cannon's work just by you translating those books. You by default you gain a lot of knowledge from it.
Yeah, not only knowledge is the sentiment too, because a couple of them I've read before, not all of
Mhm.
them. For example, with Jesus and the Essenes, when I did the last chapter where Dolores is talking about that, I cried. Like I had no idea how intense and how emotional. Like I could really transport myself doing that. It's just I don't know, it's different. I think I had heard it in an audiobook in English before, but when I translated it, it wasn't until I actually finished the translation and then I like, did the final review. I was like eyeballing, like crying, like I could feel so many things. So it's done a lot to me besides just acquiring information. Like I can feel, I
Yeah,
don't
some
know, so
healing
much
of some sort,
elevation.
some gravitation.
Yeah,
He was probably
definitely super
maybe he was
interesting.
connected there, past life, and some kind of
Yeah,
experience connected with it.
definitely, definitely. And I keep having dreams. The other super amazing and strange thing that happened is when I was translating Convoluted Universe 3, I happened to be with Matias de Stefano in Argentina. I don't know if you know who he is, but they call him an indigo child because he remembers a lot of his past lives. So he talks about Atlantis and he talks about a lot of things, right? So sometimes he has these gatherings where he does activation for Earth.
Hmm.
And so anyway, I happen to be one of one of the people that went with him in this group. And every night after we finish all the activities, I would come to the hotel and do some work on the translation. And I started noticing that every single chapter that I translated that day described the activities that we did. And yeah, because we went to Land of Fire, which is like the Patagonia, the very, very bottom of Latin America. And I was like, wait a minute, like, is it just me? So I would give it to my roommates because we were sharing rooms. I was sharing the room with two other friends. And I wouldn't tell them. They knew that I was translating Dolores's book, but, I have this Word document and, I'm typing, and I will have them read part of it. And they were like, oh, cool, you're documenting it. And I'm like, okay, so it's not just me. So they thought because the activities were so alike that, they thought that I was documenting, but in reality, I was translating the book. And so I go to Matias and I say, do you know who Dolores Cannon is? And he's Argentinian. He was born in Argentina. He doesn't, especially back then, now he speaks better English because he's got this, shows that he started. But his English is not super good, and he's not very familiar with a lot of people in the English speaking world, right? And he says, no. And I said, do you really don't know who Dolores Cannon is? And he says, I don't remember. And I said, do you know QHHD? He's like, no, what is it? And so I explained to him, and he's like, oh, no, I never heard of her. And I believe him. There's no reason why he would lie. Mm-hmm. And then I show him the book without showing, that it was a Dolores Cannon book. He's like, oh, you're documenting our activities. That's cool. You have to send that to me because later on I'm going to write a book about this. I'm like, no. And so that I tell him, this is a book that I'm translating. And it was written decades ago. And he was like, oh, he was like, wow, that's pretty interesting. We have to tap into that. So that was like besides what you said, it's not just reading them. It's a mind-blowing experience that I had translating these books. I'm actually living them. It's a way of explaining it.
Absolutely. Yeah, when it comes to metaphysical world, like nothing just happens by chance.
Yeah.
It's connected in multiple ways. You think you're translating a book to do it for a job or whatever, but it's like, nah, there's a hidden catch to it.
Yes, definitely. Definitely. So yeah, that's part of what I do in this waking state.
Gotcha. All right. Well, that's pretty cool.
The other state.
To know. Has anything come? I know you mentioned Atlantis a little bit, but has any of that ever come up in any of the trips?
For me, the reason I started doing these trips is because I learned with Matias, the reason why I started following his work is because I heard him talk one time about Atlantis and certain things. So it just, triggered me and it resonated so well. So I started learning more and more. And that's, in those days, that's what he was talking about mostly, how life was in Atlantis and how Atlantis, Egypt basically was founded by Atlanteans after the fall. Mm-hmm. And the way we do the initiation path in our trips for Egypt follows that tradition, that belief, which is where Atlanteans believe that humans are just an extension of Earth. We're just an expression of nature, right? And if you were to correlate humans with Earth, we're part of Earth's cells. And so with that in mind, the Nile River represents the vertebra of the human body. And the way the temples were built, most of the temples nowadays have been rebuilt, recreated, and moved a little bit. Some of them are underwater. Some of them, the original temple is under the new one or the one that you tend to visit. But the Atlantean energy, the original magic, if you were to call it that way, is still there, it's still in the land. And so they believe that by recreating a specific path, it's like working all the chakras of the system. So we start doing our work from the south of Egypt all the way to the crown, which is the pyramid. And that's why in our trip, we end, and sorry, let me go back a little bit. So we start with the root chakra all the way to the crown, and we visit each temple, working in each chakra, not only visiting the temples, but also using oils, because they also have that belief. And that's why they used a lot of oils and sacred oils, because every plant is connected with a specific energy that connects with that specific energy point in your system that we know as chakras. So you activate your own and you connect with the earths and with Egypt. And so you bring in all that magic, all that information, all that. And I call it magic, right? But it's that energy that becomes, Tracy, like amazing, like super powerful, like
it's something, I mean, like that was my first experience going through that. And when Laura and I decided we wanted to do another one, she's like, should we change it up? I'm like, no, that was such an amazing way to experience Egypt, to start with that root chakra and start at, you know, we went down to Luxor and went through the temples, and each day Laura would be like, put this oil on. And we'd put the oil on and what we were working on that day. And then we would all gather and go into the temples, and then we would convene in the temples at certain spaces and just be activated by the energies in there and what our intentions were, what we were doing with that. And that's when all that divine feminine, divine masculine, and balancing these energies and messages, not just from like the Arcturians, but also messages from Osiris and Horus and Isis, and not just me bringing in messages and Laura bringing in messages from channeling, but this is what we were working on with the group. And so the people that were with us were bringing in these messages. These activations that we were going through, the chakra systems, were getting us ready for the King's Chamber at the end when we worked on that crown chakra. And it was just like, I can't imagine doing the pyramid first and then going and doing all this other stuff.
Yeah,
It's
Tracy
like, it was great.
Yeah, you was telling me about that. So usually the Torah groups will start at the pyramids and then work their way south, but you started yours all the way south, and then y'all work your way north.
Up to the pyramid, yeah.
All right, and you did that because of the chakra system, or you did that? I know you mentioned Atlantis, but I guess that chakra energy.
Yeah, I did that because that's the way the ancient Atlanteans did it. So you have to go through like what they called it a rite of passage, right? It's like proving yourself. And the reason is like attuning your body for the next step. And so the way it was explained to me is that, you know, the evolution of humanity and the evolution of Earth is unstoppable. So to be better prepared for this transition, you want to attune your body for what's next to become. And what I was told is it's called the Homo Sanctus Lucidus, which is Latin for basically an enlightened being, right? So we were from primates to Homo sapiens, right? And those are the terms that they use. So someone like the Buddha, someone like Jesus, they've already gone through all of that. They did that actually, according to these writings and these teachings that I learned. Part of the time when Jesus disappeared, he did that same initiatic path that we did. And every enlightened being that has done that, a lot of those sages in India, a lot of the people that we come to know as great teachers, spiritual teachers, have done that specific path. The way it was done. We skipped one step, which was going to this part in the Sinai, but there's worse. So we were told that it was okay. So it was actually better because then it got moved to Hurghada, which is the Red Sea, instead of going to the Sinai. And because
Sister likes the Red Sea. That was amazing. Amazing.
Yeah. And it's the same sea, it's the same ocean that we would have crossed, but no war. And it was amazing. It was probably the highlight of the trip because everybody absolutely loved it.
Yeah.
So
I heard y'all went snorkeling, right?
Yes.
And scuba diving.
And
yeah.
Oh, yes. Nice. A little jealous.
You're always welcome to join us to the next one.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, that was just incredible. You know, that initiatic path, like I was saying, after going through it the way that Laura's designed it, I cannot imagine what that would have been like to start at the pyramids and then do it, go to the other things. And part of that is because, we're with this group, and each day we're getting to know each other better and better and better. By the time we're at the pyramid, we are a family. And I mean, we did not want to go home. None of us did. We're like, every time somebody had to leave, we all run to the lobby and saying our goodbyes and stuff. But we were also bonded by that point to go into the King's Chamber feeling that bond, and then going in there, and we're doing each of us doing our turn in the sarcophagus in that space, and chanting and doing our own independent prayers or meditations in there. That was one of those time warpy things where it's like, I thought we were only supposed to have 2 hours in here, and it felt like we were in there for like 5 hours.
And where was this at?
Would go, yeah, we still got another hour, and I'm like, what?
And where was this at?
At the King's Chamber.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
In the Great Pyramid in Giza.
Yeah, like that time got extended somewhere, and it was like, okay.
Yeah, it just kept feeling like that. And like Tracy said, this is the amazing part of this type of trips, because I truly believe that we're rejoining our spiritual family of somehow, because people they're just working synchronicity. Like there were times, so first, everybody is just getting, acquainted with each other, but they're already treating each other like they've known each other for a long time. That was one thing. And then the second part, a lot of times, when you're leading a group, you want them all to be together and doing the same activities, but everybody just got there and went and did their own thing, whatever they were called to do, that's what they did. And the poor tour guide that we had, we kept giving him a hard time because, he felt like responsible and he wanted everybody to be together, until I had to tell him, look, just let them do their own thing.
Just tell us where to meet and what time.
Yeah. And then like we would have an experience, and then we will say, oh my God, we just had this most amazing experience. I wish everybody was here. Turns out that it didn't matter if the whole group would be divided in 5 little groups or 2. We were doing the same thing, the same type of activation. And it was just the synchronicity and Tracy and I didn't even plan a lot of those activities. They just happened, we all knew.
Yeah, that was wild. We would be doing something and would come back together and be like, oh, we had this real wild experience. So did we. Oh, we did. Well, so did we. And so, yeah, it was very in sync. Wherever we were, whatever we were doing, everybody was in exactly the right place.
This was like all the other.
This is at any of the
other events, right?
Gotcha. Yeah. And we visited a lot of temples. I think it's in total, there are like 13 temples. Also, we work with 9 chakras, because we also work with the ankles and the knees, not just like the 7 from the root and above. We actually start in the ankles, because that's a lot of people, New Society, they forget that we have energy points, and they're very, very important too, because the ankles represent your path in life, and the knees your direction. So if you don't work those 2, then you don't know where you're going, and you may be going the wrong direction. So you have to attune them as well.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Astral Trail, what is that exactly? Is that part of the event?
Yes.
Astral traveling and
Astral travel.
So I'll let you talk about that, Laura.
Yeah. So I give them a workshop before we head to Egypt, because I want them to be familiar with our bodies. So astral travel is the ability to get out of your own physical body, using your energy body, and travel above and beyond through time and space, wherever you want to go. Basically, you become a time traveler, right? Or astral travel. And so in that workshop, I explain what the body is made of according to physics and according to biology. And with that, you know that your body is made of water and energy. And so I explain about our other 6 bodies and how we can connect with them and use them so that when we get to Egypt and the places that we need to visit, your body will start reacting. Your cells will start remembering. And if you're not prepared, a lot of people think that they're getting sick, but it's actually your body detaching, activating, and trying to get out and do whatever they need to do. But when you have that information already, then it's easier to just, hug a stone and let your body travel. And that's what a lot of people did. I mean, they would just like touch the stones, lay them, and then all of a sudden, even people that didn't seem to be very esoteric or very much into, this
The
type of
woo-woo.
things, yeah, they would come out. Like we had one of
Oh
them.
my gosh. Adam. Yeah.
Well, everybody, but
Yeah.
certain ones, they were very into, yeah, I read the book, I know Dolores, this and that. And some people were like, I just came here to take pictures, right? Like one of them was Adan, and he's
I just thought we were seeing temples. I didn't know we were doing this stuff. Yeah,
and they get so
so powerful.
connected. And that's what I was referring to earlier, that I call it magic or superpowers, because your body just recognizes the power of the place, embraces it. So if you're already familiar on how your energy body works, how your mental body works, you're going to have a much greater experience. And when you realize that your pinky is moving in a weird way, it's like, oh, you're in tune, because this is your superpower telling you someone is telling the truth or not. We have someone like that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So those are some of the amazing things that happened. People start becoming more psychic. They come back and they experience things that they never thought they would experience before. And that's what makes these trips amazing. I mean, it's not just that going to Egypt because it's such a mystic place full of history and this and that. It really works on you, and your body is truly. I have not had from the groups that I went to before, and now that I got to experience it with Tracy, us together, I've never heard anybody saying, oh, it was just like a regular trip to Egypt. Everybody had an experience. One of the people in the group, this guy told us, anybody can go to Egypt and you can go to Egypt anytime. But a trip like this,
Yeah.
you'll never have. So that's the most amazing part. That's why I keep going back, and that's why we're going back and we'll continue to go back.
Very
Yeah.
interesting. What makes yours so different is because y'all doing like energy work at some of the temples. Are y'all allowed to do any kind of sessions or energy work at these temples? Is that what makes it on that next level of experience? Or y'all do all the energy work and astral travel ahead of time?
So there is some stuff that we do ahead of time, and then while we're on the Nile cruise, there is a little bit of time there where we meet up on
I
this
think
last
you did a
trip.
channeling, correct? Didn't you do a channel?
Mhm.
Yeah, we did channeling. Well, there was a lot of channeling going on wherever we could sneak it in fact. And then, but I
On the
was
slick?
teaching, I was teaching on the Nile cruise. I was teaching that, and then we took everybody through past life regression. That was fun because the staff didn't quite understand what we were doing. So I can't even imagine what they thought when they walked in, and
They're
everybody's
like,
like,
why all these people's eyes?
there's like all these people passed out and sleeping in this area, and they had to go through and get ice or something. I can't remember what it was, but I thought, that person's thinking right now. That'd be a weird thing to walk in on. But yeah, just taking through what was your experience when you had lifetimes in Egypt, and recalling those and being connected. In fact, one of the things that I was shown, and now I can't remember what temple we were in when I saw that, but it was that I was Osiris's Daniel. Like I was the ET communicating with Osiris during the time he was on Earth. And I thought, oh, that's interesting, and the thought popped in my head, and then chills went through my body, and I'm like, oh, that's wild. So, we find out some interesting things while we're there. I believe one of the gals got the message that we were all children of Horus. Is that who it was? Yeah.
Hathor, yeah.
Hathor. Yeah, that's right. And
one of them re-experienced her birth
yeah,
in one of the temples. Yeah.
Yeah, we had so many experiences. Like every day we went out and we'd come back with something. It was pretty cool.
And you know, you ask what makes it different. So
Mhm.
a couple of things make it different. One is for us to decide, you know, Tracy, she's a great activator. And I don't know if she knows this, but just by not even
She's
thinking about it, she
she's an
activates
interesting
people.
motivator too.
Yeah. So she was activating, channeling in everybody, you know, back and forth, because even those who didn't know could channel, or like this guy, you know, he didn't even know what channeling was, and he was channeling.
Oh my
And
goodness.
so yeah, because it was his time, you know, it was meant for him to be there. So one is the intention of really activating the DNA in the participants, those that join us, sharing the information about how astral travel works, and realizing that every single temple that we visit, I mean, Egyptologists, of course, they're doing their work and they're telling you what they learn in school, right? And yes, that is true. It's not that they're not saying something that isn't true, but they tell us the story that happened 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 years ago. The story that I'm sharing, they all feel it, hear it, because as we're describing some of the things that happened, like when Tracy got the message that she was Osiris's Daniel, per se, we all felt it. And it was confirmation after confirmation, because one person would say, oh, I just heard this. And then somebody else will say, yeah, me too. Like it was
Or we
never
would say something the other person was about to say it.
a,
And we're all
aha.
like, what? I was just going to say
Yeah.
that. Or I just had that same thought. It was, yeah.
Yeah, so there was a lot of confirmation on what people were getting the messages. So I truly believe that's what makes it different. And also that I know of, there's no other tour guide or tour company in Egypt that recreates the initiatic path, that activates and synchronizes and fine tunes your energy points in the body like we do in these trips.
So you mentioned another reason why y'all take that path is because not only the path that the Atlanteans took on their journey, not that the Atlanteans went there first when they left Atlantis, but eventually for the rite of passage,
Mhm.
these Atlanteans had to take that path to the journey to the pyramids.
Exactly.
Okay, because I was wondering when you were saying that when the Atlanteans came to Egypt, that's the path that they took. And I was like, well, wait a minute, how did they get there? You know, but if you was to do it as a rite of passage kind of thing, then that would make sense, like a journey that they had to take.
So what I'm about to share is information that I grabbed from different places. It just made sense to me. Something that I heard Matthias talk about. Some of it we experienced when I took the level 2 QHHD in Egypt. That was my first time in Egypt. Certain memories, certain recollections. And mind you, this is more than 6 years ago, where I wasn't really into this belief, or I mean, I came to Dolores Cannon because I had a near-death experience, and I had heard in my death or in my travel, wherever I went, I remember her name resonated because more than 20 years ago, I had met her in a college assignment class. I was studying abnormal psychology, and part of my homework was to go hear her speak in one of the conferences that she came to. It was her and Brian Wise and somebody else, right? And I heard her talk about aliens and past lives, but I was like, whatever, you know. But I just instantly loved her without knowing her. But that was the first and last time I went home and like nothing. But after I had that experience, her name started resonating, and I did research about her, and I found out she was teaching, and lo and behold, that changed my life. So in that first trip in Egypt, taking QHHT, we had there were a lot of weird things happening for me the first time, like arriving to the hotel and having dreams about going under the Sphinx and going under the pyramids and discovering that there is a whole library of
This is
information there.
before the books, right? Before the books.
This is before the books. Yeah, I've
Dolores
never
Cannon's
read
book.
any. When I took the class, I never read any of her books. Like I said, I just took the class because I wanted to know what happened to me, where I went. And maybe this is a narration for another time, but I was so shocked by everything that I felt and saw in my near-death experience. I call it my death experience. I literally died and then came back. That I was hungry for knowing what happened to me, because the place where I went felt more real than this reality to me. And so I started Googling and searching about near death and this and that, this and that. And that's how her name started resonating. So I didn't know anything about this. I didn't know absolutely anything. I didn't even know a lot about Egypt. And to be quite honest with you, you hear so many ugly things in the news about Egypt that I didn't even want to go. But
Hmm.
we're going to have the level 2 class in Shasta. I live in California, in Los Angeles, so it's close to me. And I'm signing up for the level 2 because I had just taken the level 1. I had just finished my 10 or whatever, you know, because I think level 2 is 10 and then it's 25. So anyway, I had just finished all my practices, and I think that I'm signing up for Shasta. And when Egypt wasn't even on their website because I don't remember seeing it. I'm thinking I'm signing up for Shasta, and then I received the thank you for subscribing to Egypt, and I'm like, what? Wait, what? So I said, okay,
Egypt.
I guess I'm going to Egypt. That's how it happened. So it was
Wow.
technically an accident. An accident. It was unintentional. Let me put it that way.
That's an
Unintentional
expensive
for me to
accident.
Egypt.
No
Yeah.
kidding. Yeah.
Yeah. But you know, at that point I said, you know what?
It was meant to be.
This is where you want me to go? Okay, I'll go.
You can't deny it.
No.
Yeah.
It actually sounded like a great idea although I didn't plan it, because everything that was happening to me at that point, I just felt like, you know what? Great. If I can go as far away as possible, then I go to Egypt. I just wanted to get away. But it was never intended for me, I mean, consciously to go to Egypt, and that's how it happened. And so I started having, while I was there, it was just crazy, like crazy. Like I would literally feel when I would come to the room in the hotel, I would literally feel that the bed will become this vortex and started pulling me down, and I'll be traveling. And I mean, I don't do drugs, honestly. People that know me will know. I didn't take anything, you know, because people will usually, well, what do you take? No, I didn't take anything. And then another validation was when we started doing the practices. And this girl that practiced on me as QHH2 students, you know that when we practice, they usually pair us in groups, or we create our own groups to keep practicing after class every day. And so when I had my session and my opportunity to be under, there were 2 other people, you know them, Tracy, Therese, and Larry, right? And then so I go to this place that I described as a mine, and it turned out to be the Serapeum, but I didn't know anything. And the Serapeum had been closed since the 1980s. And a lady we had in our class, she was the sister of someone who worked for the government. And she said, my sister said they just opened the Serapeum 3 days ago. Do you guys want to go? And we all said yes. And then as we're walking inside, and Tracy knows, it's a place in the middle of nowhere. If you don't know that's there, you would never think there's something there, because all you see is desert and desert and desert. So you have to walk for a little bit, and then you have to go under the earth for like, what is it, Tracy? Like 40 meters, maybe? I don't know. Maybe like 2 stories per se, you know? And then as we're walking in, I start recognizing all of the things that I saw in my vision, in my session. And then I just keep being mesmerized and recognizing. And then the other 3 that were with me in the room a couple of days before during my session, we started looking at each other, and Nelway is like, that's exactly what you were describing. And so at the end of the tunnel, there were 2 that was going to be the final decision maker. But the way the doors were, the way I described them, the way they had like this pointy, kind of like a not closed triangle, everything in detail, the niches at the beginning, and then we rushed to the end to see if there were the two holes that I had seen in my vision. One was a little one here, and the other one was a bigger one that if you were to go through the other side, you'd have to crawl. So that was another validation for me, because I'd never even heard of a serapeum. I didn't know what it was. And I was able to see everything before we actually went there physically. So
And-
those are the type of things that happen to people.
And you
And the
saw
good
this in a QHHT session where you was training, where you was practicing, the 2-on-2 or whatnot.
Correct.
Ah, and then then you go to Egypt, and then next thing you know, all the pieces are coming together.
Yes. Well,
So,
I was in Egypt when we did that practice.
gotcha.
Yeah. Yeah. So.
So did anything come out from that session? Do you remember anything interesting?
Oh yeah, I remember everything. If you want me to tell you if there's time.
Well, anything you think that is interesting that you would like to share? Go for it.
Well, for once, I learned what that place was. So first, I saw, that's why I got so connected with the Atlantean traditions, because I started remembering. I mean, I got more sessions, and that's why I put the story together. That's why I was saying earlier, some of the things that I share are like the initiatic path from multiple sessions, because I went back and I said, well, I want to know more about this life, because in that particular time, as I was entering, I saw when you enter the serapeum, there's a different walls and they look like they have niches. And so my job, this was pre-Atlantean times. So the way it was, the information that I got is, so what we know now as Egypt used to be a post, an outpost for both Atlantis and Lemuria before the fall. So they would both send people there, and there were natives there that will help, and they would, coexist with, but it was a post that they both shared.
That's interesting. I knew about the Atlantean, it being an outpost or a region for the Atlanteans, but I never knew that about Lemuria. That's interesting.
It was also a post for Muda. Actually, when the devastation of Lemuria happened, a lot of them went there, also to Egypt. So Egypt has a lot of Lemurian and, but mostly Atlantean energy, and mostly Atlantean because when they decided to bring all of the information to this safe place that is now Egypt, is when Thoth, the teacher, it was a teacher for everybody. He was the one that was sharing all of the information to what we know now as goddess. They were actually enlightened beings, people that had already gone through the path, the initiatic path, and had already progressed to that second stage, right, to being enlightened beings. And so that's why they all have wings, because once you go through that rite of passage and you become enlightened, you're capable of coming back to life with wings, because you can fly. So whenever you see an entity with wings, means that they've already graduated and they've already done that path, that initiatic path. And so I was part of the people that when we knew that something horrible was going to happen and all the darkness and negativity was coming to Earth, we had to hide the information. And so back then there were no books, right? And nobody wanted to write them on stones because they could be easily destroyed. So what a better way to find an element that can never be destroyed? What is that? Water. And so we will put all of the information in the water and put it in jars, clay jars, and put them in all of those niches. Those were the libraries of over 12,000 years ago. Those were our libraries. And so, yeah, so I was in charge of getting
all this time I was thinking it was crystals. Damn it.
Well, crystals have the same elements of water, but it's like ice, right? So you're right. It's just it's a twist of the composition, if you call it that way.
So when we find these Hall of Records, they're gonna see all these clay jars and it's gonna be water in it, and they're like, "There's nothing in here," and they're like, not so fast."
Yeah, exactly, exactly. I remember a lot of funny things about that life, like to insult people that were, instead of calling them dumb, we'll call them empty jars. His shape, right? So empty
Makes
jars
sense.
mean like you have
Not
nothing,
enough, not enough
not enough information.
in that jar,
Nothing in
you
the
know?
noggin.
You gotta
Yeah,
fill that jar up with something.
yeah. And so that was part of it. And then when in that first session, also what I saw is I was a human, right? And I was doing all this work and everything. But I knew all of these doors or chambers that you see along the serapeum is huge. And what we were able to see is probably 20% of the actual magnitude of this place. There's so many places where you can't go through. And they fixed it a lot. They've put a lot of reinforcement because, again, remember, this is about 2 stories under all this desert, right? And so experience in this past life, what I was describing as a mind, because I had no other knowledge of how to describe it, because I was going under the earth and I was seeing all this like wooden structures and chambers. And I saw the stones, the chambers, that they look like a coffin, but made of stone. I don't know if you're familiar with the serapeum and the stones, but they look like gigantic coffins, basically made of stone.
Oh, is that where the people think that bulls were buried in?
Exactly.
Yes, yes, okay,
Exactly.
yes.
And yes, they used them for the bulls, but that was like about 6,000 years later.
Yeah.
So those chambers were used to regenerate the body. So people
Makes
would go
sense.
in there. That's why they could live 500, 600 years back then, right? They will go in there and then people will sing. And then the vibration that the rock or the stone, because it's mostly quartz, will generate, and you being in a dark room, actually, if you're not afraid to just go in a place in total darkness and talk to the cells of your body, you'll see how amazing you would feel later. Because there's something about darkness when you are not afraid of it and you know that it's helping you, it actually regenerates all the cells in your body.
Mm.
So anyway, that's what I learned on that. And so we use them for that, to regenerate the bodies of people and heal them, and astral travel too. Because there is a way where you can detach, leave your physical body like we do in our dreams, and then you can go and travel to the stars. But people were masters are doing that. So that's part of what I teach, lucid dreaming and astral traveling, because it makes a great difference when you're in a dream, right? And you start learning to have control of your own dream. And all of a sudden, oh, wait, this monster is chasing me, but this is my dream. I get to change the story. Now let me chase that monster.
That monster's using a message, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so that was my test in that session. My test was to go under and go to that end of the tunnel that I was telling you, with the little hole in front of me. And I knew that my test was supposed to go through the little hole, but my human mind was thinking, I don't fit through there. I'm gonna have to crawl on the dirt and go through that hole that's on the dirt. And then the girl that was she was doing the session on me, she goes, well, why don't you use your mind? And vroom, like I was transported to the other side of the wall in Egypt, and I saw the connection with America. So actually that place, it's a portal to many places, but in that particular time, it was a portal, and I was able to see the Iguazu Falls and the Niagara Falls. So I was like, oh, cool. But then when I passed my test, I became an alien. Well, actually, I was an alien. So I had just passed my earthly test. And later I learned that, I mean, I was already an alien. I was wearing a blue suit, and I had a logo that had a star and a moon together. And it was really, it's another funny part that, you know, how the typical question in QHHT is, are you a male or female? I was like, oh, I'm a female, because I felt female. My hair was long, but then I look and I'm like, where are my boobs? I was like, where are my boobs? And I was confused. I was like, wait, I think I'm a male, but then I have no parts. And I'm like, I think I'm both or neither. I don't know. I was
Just
so
a vessel.
confused. Yeah. And then I didn't know anything about Pleiadians or alien races. And so when we went back the next day to the class and we shared the experience, Sarah said, "Oh, you're probably a Pleiadian." And I'm like, "What's a Pleiadian?" And then she starts describing and she starts telling me what Pleiadians are.
And who
According
was
to
this? This was Sarah or someone else?
Yeah.
Sarah Breastman, yeah, she was my
Okay.
teacher in Egypt. She was there with us. And so yeah, she told me, she described how they are, and I said, well, that sounds like it. But my suit was so comfortable. That's when the term like a second skin made total sense to me, because
What
my
color was it?
suit, it was blue.
Okay.
It was like royal blue, and my boots were white. And I was on top of the falls. I went to the Iguazu Falls and the Niagara Falls, and I was stepping on really steep rocks. And I was like, oh, this doesn't hurt. Nothing hurts. I wasn't hot or cold or uncomfortable. Nothing at all. I could do whatever I wanted. And then I saw other things, traveling through time and space. I saw the construction of the pyramids, the deconstruction. I saw the Sphinx, and when it had two faces before this one. It had the face of a lion, and it had the face of a woman as well. And the eyes, I remember the eyes were like this bright green, like stone, which it might look like jade. Actually, I'm wearing my bracelet right now. So this, I don't know, probably you can't really see it, because if I'm in the dark, this glows.
Okay. For the podcast people, you're wearing a jade bracelet from what it
It
looks
looks
like?
like jade.
It
If
does
you
look
were to
like it.
see it, it looks like jade,
So
but
it's
it
kind
glows
of
in the dark.
green. It's kind of a green
Yeah, they call
bracelet.
it the Power Stone. You can only find it in one place in the world. And I know this Egyptian family that they sell it. They have a jewelry and they sell it. You can't really find it, but they used to use it to power the inside of the tunnels under the Sphinx and the pyramids and in many other places. And so the eyes of this lion face Sphinx was of this stone, because during the day they just shine, but at night they glow.
Wow.
Oh, I see what you're saying. So they use that stone for its eyes.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Have you ever came across in any of your work that there was two Sphinx that was built?
Yes.
Okay. I had a client, and when she came in for a QHHT session, she was talking about that. She was talking about the second Sphinx, how it was like a female Sphinx and everything, what happened to it, and how it was destroyed and sunk and so
Yeah.
on. So
I think is through one of my sessions, and then I get a lot of confirmation from Dolores' books as well. When I have sessions with clients and they confirm, and then I read it in one of her books. But one of those is that there's another Sphinx that will soon be discovered too. But the Sphinx that I'm talking about, this is the one that we all know. But through that life as an alien, that I was able to travel through time and space and actually saw myself living inside a bubble. Like I learned later that this is
Merkaba.
huh?
Merkaba?
Yes, it's a Merkaba, or it could be like an orb. So
Okay.
when, again in the session, when she asks me, where do you live? And I said, I just looked around. I'm like, oh, I live in this bubble. It was a crystal bubble. That was my house. That was my workstation. That was pretty much everything to me. And in that little bubble, I was able to travel inside the water, because I'm traveling in the ocean and I'm seeing whales cross my path and dolphins. And then I get out and I see the pyramids being built. And then I travel and I go around the world, and then the pyramids are crumbling and then they're being rebuilt. And so Egypt was like lush, jungle-like, and then it's all dried up, and then it's all flooded, and then it returns. It was just like a time lapse, like continuing time lapse. I was able to see like a lot of the creation in one of those. So when Egypt was still a jungle before it was Egypt, the face of the Sphinx was a lion with this green color eyes. And it was a time when the cat people ruled, and the people of the land venerated the cat people because they had such an amazing powers. They had the power to heal. They had the power to do so many things. And then there was some kind of an accident, and this I gather later, like I said, like from my own experiences, and then the books is just like putting the pieces of the puzzle together. It's just like, wow. And then being people, somehow this incident happened, and so they decided to destroy the head of the Sphinx, and then to honor this woman, they put her face on it. But then the pharaohs came and they said, no woman here, and let me put
Yeah,
my
because it was that feminine energy. Right.
yeah. Yeah.
No woman.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Woman can't be trusted.
What I remember, I'm going years back now, from what I remember, the Sphinx was built as a lion, I guess, as I think even Sarah talks about it as the alpha predator kind of thing. And then
Mhm.
to show, because it's a lot older than what we think. And it was also to, hey, don't destroy this kind of thing as well. And
Mhm.
like the natives of that time, like, yeah, we better not touch this thing or mess around with it. One of the priestess had special abilities, special powers, and they wind up killing her for the powers. And she was part of the cat people. And they took her image and put it onto the Sphinx. And
Mhm.
that's one of the stories where it was either they took her image or built another Sphinx, and that's where the second Sphinx comes from. And that's when to say thank you for her. And I think even in that Sphinx, they took her crystal, or that crystal that was in the temple, and they took it and they put it into that Sphinx that worshiped or represented her.
Oh, okay.
So some things I do remember from the books, it's all up here somewhere scattered.
Yeah,
Try
I
not to
know.
mix up the two with sessions and so on. So, but
Yeah, it can get like Dolores said, convoluted when you start
that's
digging.
Yeah.
right. I mean, she
Yeah.
picked the perfect title for the books, right?
Yes,
Yep.
absolutely.
Exactly.
So Tracy, did you have a past life in Egypt? I think you told me you did. I don't know if you ever talked about it.
I had a memory of one past life in Egypt where I oversaw I guess it would be the priest or the pharaohs go through. They would take the tonic and go into a chamber and basically have like a near-death experience or something of that, like a spiritual awakening. And I was one of the ones that would watch over them when they would go through that. I every once in a while I'll get glimpses. I know that I've had lifetimes with pyramids, but I don't know that those pyramids were the ones in Egypt. There was a life I had as an oracle that watched over a golden pyramid, and the souls would gather, and when people would pass, their souls would gather there, and on the solstices they would gather the souls, or this light would come in and you would see all the souls leave. And
So the Golden Pyramid, you think that was Egypt or Atlantis?
I would say more of Atlantis type of a energy with that one. And it was interesting because I lived several hundred years in that life. I think I was 800 and something when I finally passed away from that life.
Oh,
But
well, you remember a lot more than what you ever told me.
yeah, but I'd watch every solstice or new moon or whatever it was that they would collect the souls, or what, the energy would connect and the souls would go out of the pyramid. I'm watching that like a light show every time, and I never realized I was the only one that could see it. So I remember that, learning that no one else could see that. I was the only one that was seeing it. But in that lifetime, I never actually would leave the temple. I had a very large crystal in there that I would work with, and I would actually go in remote view and walk with the people, but nobody could see me because I was in my my energy body, and I would just, what would you call that? It's not even biolocating because there wasn't a physical body, but I would be able to project my energy body and go look and be wherever I wanted to be, but my physical body was always still in the temple. So it was an interesting life in that regard, but I remember the way that life came to an end was because there were spacecraft that came in and destroyed the area, and they took over the rulership or whatever of the people, and they started using them for slavery versus community, and I couldn't save them, and
Yeah, but
eventually
an idea who these people were? Did they have beards by any chance?
beards. No, I don't think I ever. They corrupted the leader. The leader was the one that started using the people to build what he wanted and abusing the villagers, and using them for his own gain. But I don't know what the ones in the ships look like. As
Interesting.
you're asking that, I'm seeing it in my head, and I'm not seeing what they
Might have
look
to
like.
put you back under, Tracy.
Might have to go for round 2.
We need more. Are y'all planning on, are y'all gonna stay focused on ancient Egypt or the Egypt area? Y'all gonna expand to other areas by any chance?
We're expanding. So the next one would be England. We're still working on that. So England will be, there's also an Initiatic path there to be done. Visiting all the energy points of the country, starting again from the knees and ankles and going up to the crown. And that's visiting all of the stone circles, which is also something that I've been learning through this new task that I've been given, because I thought there was only one, but no, it turns out there's so many more. And so that is now awakening the druid energy in a lot of people, and the feminine also.
I think Tracy has a friend that was connected to the Druid energy big time.
Yeah, actually this weekend we're doing a solstice to bring in our fall. But yeah, very big connection with the druids.
Yeah, so
Laura,
we've been having talks about that, Tracy and I, doing something in England.
oh, perfect. So Laura, I forgot to ask you this. So when you were seeing the pyramids being built, do you have an idea who built them?
Yeah, it was the ancient Atlanteans.
Okay.
The ancient Atlanteans, meaning the enlightened beings, which are the children of the Arcturians, though they are our forefathers, I guess. And some of us mix with Anunnakis, although many people don't like it when I say it, but that's what I was shown. It was part of the things that I was shown. When they were fighting over the Anunnakis not wanting the humans to have their superpower abilities because we were going to destroy each other. And the Arcturians say, no, let them, they deserve to have them. And they were like, yes, no, okay, maybe. Well, only some of them. Let them go through these things, and then have them earn it. And so Thoth was one of the main architects on building the pyramids. And, like we know, some of us know, it's the Arcturians.
What
And the people in Egypt that had already gone through their wisdom. It wasn't using slaves like many people think. The people that participating.
I was going to say, have you ever brought up certain things? Because I'm assuming you have a tour guide, right?
Yeah.
Oh, our poor tour guides.
Do you ever bring up something? Because I always wondered that myself. Because like I see Sarah on these trips, I'm like, is Sarah allowed to speak? Like, hey, in this session, this happened. So I was always wanted to know when you're having these tours and you say these certain things, or these tour guides like, no, that is wrong. You can't say it like that. You can't say those things.
Ours never did that, but I think we changed the lives of a couple of them. They won't ever be the same hearing our versions of things.
Well, questioning reality.
To start, you know, when I'm putting the tour together, the agency makes me sign this agreement where because I was so focused on the specific itinerary, I was questioned a lot, and it took me a lot of back and forth and multiple agencies to say I want it this way, and they're like, no, but we're not, but I want it this way. And so if they wouldn't give it to me, I'll go next. And so in Egypt, it is forbidden to meditate. It is forbidden to do any type of religious things. And if you wear a lot of white, it's a red flag, right?
Oh,
And
like a
so,
white shirt and white pants kind of
yeah,
thing?
yeah, you're not supposed to, because they know that spiritual people, you know, that's what they. I'm like, okay, whatever happened will
Guess I'm
happen.
out. I'm gonna have to change my dress code.
Yeah.
No, you don't have to, because I mean, we had people, remember, they were wearing all white, and
Mhm.
so
I
what
would
happened
think they
is,
were wearing all white because it's hot.
yeah. So so I told the group, I said, well, you know, just please don't be so obvious. Whatever I wanted them to be free and do whatever they felt compelled to do. And I said, but let's keep an eye on each other, because it is forbidden to do this in Egypt. And all I had to do was just kind of, you know, distract the people a little bit. I thought I had to, but we ended up not to, because again, it was one of those things where somehow, you know, they would just like turn a blind eye, and they would just be like turn into stone. Like they wouldn't tell us not to do something. On the contrary, I was shocked that in some places, so one of the
They
other,
even got us in one of the places and brought us to
yeah,
more places.
exactly. So some of the amazing things that happened, it was like there was this incident where I thought I had arranged, you know, for the group to go into the the Osiris temple, where it is one of the very few Atlantean temples from over 12,000 years ago. And there's so many ways to recognize it. And I wanted the group to see the difference in structure and stones and the finishing of the stone compared to the new temples, right? And then we couldn't get in because supposedly I needed special permission, which is something that I've never heard before. I've been there multiple times, and there was a new
Mhm.
thing. So I was quite upset. And then
Yes,
somehow
I was a
this
witness to that.
guy appears, and he calls us somewhere, and he takes us to a room that was never open before, that I didn't even know existed. And it was the room of blues. And we had the Acturians, blues being the Acturians, right? And we had such an
Oh, like the
amazing
color blue
experience.
blues?
Yeah,
Mhm.
blue, like in blue.
There's a lot of blue beings on the
Yeah.
right, the pictures on the
Yeah, because the
temples.
ancient,
Oh, okay, okay. You're talking
yeah,
about the hieroglyphs on the wall.
right.
The blue people.
And their teachers, or the ancient Egyptians, they didn't call them Acturians, they called them the blue people, because they were blue color compared to them, right? And so we go there, and we had like this amazing channeling experience. Tracy channel, I think everybody channel, I don't know, but it
That
was
was where
just
the
like,
divine masculine came in.
yeah.
But here
Yeah.
that day was so amazing because what felt like a huge disappointment
Mhm.
ended up being very divine. That no, we don't want you there, we want you over here.
Yeah.
And this person that like Laura was saying, he's like, I'm so sorry this happened, let me make this up to you, come with me, come
Mhm.
with me, come with me. And
Yeah.
he unlocks this gate and opens it up and sends us in to this space, and we're just walking around in there. And before that, when we were at the Isis temple, we got very downloaded. And I want you to talk about Isis because we had such special experiences there, but we were downloaded with the divine feminine there. And the channel, when I was channeling, they said, don't worry, you're going to be doing divine masculine as well. You'll know it when you get there. You'll know when you're supposed to do it. Well, here we can't get into what we thought we were going to get into in Osiris. And then he brings us to this
Mhm.
special room, this chamber, and I'm standing there, and all of a sudden it's just like, boom, this is divine masculine. And I looked at all the guys and I said, you're on, it's divine masculine. And they did an amazing job in there.
Oh,
bring
so
the
you
divine
you
masculine.
channeled the divine masculine, or they did?
They did.
They did.
Oh,
The
okay.
guys in the group did, and
Yeah.
it was amazing.
All
And us
right.
girls formed a circle around them and held space, and they were in the center of that. And here we had this room where nobody else could see what we were doing, and we were just allowed to do what we were doing. And yeah,
They just
very.
all of a sudden, all of the people that we encountered on those places, they were just letting us do whatever we needed to do. And they were like a little bit in
We
shock
were loud.
and a little bit petrified. Like, I'm not kidding you. Like something magical just said, behold. And they just, they just let us do our thing.
Yeah.
And even more amazing afterwards, I mean, and most of these people they're so Muslim, right? I mean, you see them pause for praying. Our guide, he like praised himself, talking about Muslim and being this Muslim and this and that. They would just like hold and stay back. And at the end, every single one of us told us, I don't know what you just did. I've never seen anybody, any group do something like that. And it feels so loving. Whatever you're doing it with so much love that I can feel it.
Was it the Isis temple that we went into that little space?
Yes, no, that was Hathor, but in
Hathor.
Hathor, there's an ISIS chamber. And it was
Oh, okay.
right in front of the ISIS chamber. And again, I've been there multiple times and I didn't even know this little place existed. But all of a sudden, we go to the ISIS chamber trying to get in. It's locked. We can't get in. And then this guy calls us, and then we're going under where all the water is. Because although it may be a desert, but under there's a lot of water still, right? So we go there. And again, we didn't have to tell them to do anything. Everybody knew exactly what to do and how to do it. And so we start parading one at a time, going all the way down to where the water was. And this guy grabbing water and anointing us for some
Yeah, he put it over the head and then over the shoulders and the arms. And then he goes, okay. And then the next one, and I'm like, what just happened? This is like so weird. And
he was so into it. Like he knew what he
yeah,
had.
and then he brought us to another room that was gated off and let us spend time in there as well.
Yeah.
And
in other times when we see something like this, all they want is money. I mean, yeah, we gave them a tip, but they weren't like, no, you can't do this. You got to give me money for you to. No, they were just like, sure, let's do it.
yeah, yeah, they came and got us and led us there. And then the one that we were toning, like we went down the stairs and then through some of these places you got to crawl into.
Oh, yeah.
Kind of feel like a kid in one of those Wonderland places.
Yeah.
And we crawled in, and then there was like these two long tunnels, and we just lined ourselves up in these tunnels, and we were just toning and singing, and we were loud, like we were loud. And when I came out of there, I asked our guide, I said, down there, that sounded really pretty. What did it sound like up here? Did we sound like a bunch of howling cats, or did it sound okay? And he goes, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
I said, when we were doing all the toning and singing down there. And he goes, I didn't hear any singing. When did you do that? And I said, literally just now when I walked up, it's still going on. And he didn't hear it.
Yeah.
And neither did, there was somebody else that was up there that also didn't hear it. And I thought, how protected are we? Because we were down there doing the meditations and the toning and just being, it was just a neat experience to hear that echoing through the whole chamber hall thing and hear everyone else going about their day.
Yeah.
Just a couple of steps above us, they weren't hearing it. We did have some pretty cool experiences, and a lot of people were moved by the energy. There was times where we would just need to sit down with somebody for a little bit and let that acclimate. And yeah, there was definitely some changed lives when we left.
Now, this was
Egypt.
at the ISIS temple or the ISIS chamber?
And the ISIS one was the one where we got to go to the original
Yeah,
island.
the ISIS temple. Well,
Okay, I wasn't too sure where that
I
happened.
know there's so many temples.
Right. Where the
Yeah.
toning happened, I believe it was Edfu, where by the Horus Temple. Yeah. The Horus
Yeah.
Isis is off of the Nile River, the new one, the new temple.
Mhm.
And then the original temple, the one that was built more than 12,000 years ago, that one is now underwater. So you can, when you go through the Nile River, you see this tiny little arch that just comes out. Well, that day, it was, like I said before, the water had receded completely to the point where we could see the whole arch. We were able to get on the island because it's a tiny island and be on the actual temple, the entrance. And then for some people, the minute we got there, it was just like hugging the
sobbing
land
yeah.
and crying and crying. And so that crying means purging. So obviously this person was truly connected to the land. She probably had, you know, lives, significant lives over there. And according to what she described, is she saw a lot of the things happening, a lot of pain. And so I believe she was the part of our group that was pretty much in charge of transmuting, because she was able to absorb all of that energy. And with her pure, beautiful energy, she'll just like turn it into laughter. And this is something that I never experienced before and wasn't intended. But I found us going to all the temples with this particular group. It was all about liberating trapped energy. So that energy had to be liberated because, like we mentioned before, we would find ourselves doing certain things. You could be, you know, feel compelled to chant or sing or just hum, you know, and you knew you were liberating. And we didn't have to say it. It was after we've done it, it's like, oh, I feel good. We liberate this, we liberate that. But we never agreed beforehand to say, oh, let's hold hand, hum, and let's liberate this energy. No, it was something that we knew that we had to do, and it just happened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of spontaneity on the trip with just feel into it. What messages do we get? What do we feel? Do we need to give back to the land? What do we need to do here? It was extraordinary.
Yeah.
So for the Temple of Isis, did anything else come from it?
We found gold. There's a lot of gold, which
I knew Tracy hit it rich. I knew it.
Yeah, there was gold. Actually, we had an 11-year-old in the group, which was pretty amazing too. Actually, my brother, they were just going through the sand and they just found gold. There's a lot
That's
of
right.
pulverized.
I think I even tried to take a picture of it.
Yeah, I think I have a couple of pictures. A lot of pulverized gold. And then funny thing, now doing the audiobook for the Convoluted Universe 2, there's a chapter that talks about when, I think Dolores calls it Isizi, when it got destroyed, it was all pulverized. And then this person that's narrating this, or this priestess that's narrating this, I think Dolores asks something like, is the temple still there, or the stones? And she said, no, there's stones. It's all pulverized. But when you go there, the energy and all the, I guess, powers or abilities that she had when they destroyed the temple, because she said that it wasn't only her energy. So I think she mentioned something like it was her energy, like she was the conductor of bringing the energy, but then the rocks, the actual stones and the crystals embedded in the stones, because again, it's mostly quartz, right? The stone that has a lot of quartz, granite stone. So when it got destroyed, then it's all pulverized. And then as I was, this was just a couple of days ago, as I'm doing the audio for the audiobook, I remembered this experience in the Isis temple when we were there. And I was like, oh my holy, I think this is the place that they're talking about. And the other amazing part is that we had some people that we know, other QHHT practitioners and friends. They were also in their own trip to Egypt, right? And we even talked about the possibility of, you know, meeting somewhere and doing something
trying to
together.
figure that out. Yeah.
They had been to the Isis temple on that same day, a couple of hours different from ours. They did not get to be on the Isis temple because the water had already risen again and they couldn't get on. So
Hmm.
it's for us.
Yeah, it was miraculous. And I remember Laura's face when she's like, "You can see it." And
Yeah.
I'm like, this is my first time there. So I'm like, uh-huh.
What
And I'm like not
are you looking
realizing
at?
how special this thing that we got to do. And the fact that we were the only ones that went over there and did that. And our boat driver was amazing. He
Yeah.
took us right on over there and let us hang out for a while. And
So it
I was
sounds
having
like
fun.
y'all were at the old temple
Yeah, at the old
more
one.
than at the new temple.
This was at the old temple.
Yeah.
The gold, you
Yeah.
mean?
We had
Yeah.
Or
experiences
both.
at the new location too, though. That was
Yeah.
where
Okay. All right. So yeah,
Divine
wind up
Feminine was anchored
eventually
there.
going to the new
Yeah.
location and going into the new temple.
Yeah, we went to the new one first and we did the anchoring, I think, there of the Divine
Oh,
Feminine. We had
Mhm.
some the tour guide kept trying to get us to follow him. That was where we're
I
just
know.
like, it was like herding cats
Yeah.
trying to get us together.
I could just
And
see Tracy going, "Oh, look over there."
oh, totally, I was, yeah. And but I cracked up because I gave the boat guy my phone to take a picture of us by this arch entryway to the ISIS,
Mhm.
the old island, or the first one, original. And he gets a picture of our group without the arch, and like
I know.
it's like we're all standing in the arch. How do you not know to take a picture of the arch in that, right? And I had him take several and I couldn't get the picture, and then everybody started scattering and it was like, okay, well, we missed out on that.
So the arch was in another dimension.
It had to be because we couldn't
Probably.
capture it. Then when we went to the Sphinx, same thing happened. The tour guide was standing there. I said, could you get a group picture of us in here? Now, who goes and stands in the Sphinx and doesn't want that in the picture? I don't know anyone. But she kept cutting the head off of it. And I said, oh, the head's not in it. Could you take another one? And I run back and I'd get in the thing and she'd take another picture and maybe she got the chin this time. And I was like, all right, I'm not going to ask her again. But then everybody scattered and I never could get the picture of all of us in the Sphinx.
Was she not further back enough? Like was the
Yeah.
camera too close?
And she was, instead of, doing
Oh,
Yeah.
the whatever she was doing it sideways and cutting the head off and we were getting the wide
gotcha.
angle. And it was like, okay, try that again. It's not in there. And she must have taken 4 or 5 pictures for me. And she not in one of them would get, and it's like, how are you the tour guide for this? I'm sure you get handed lots of phones so everybody can be in the picture. How do you not know to get that in there? And I thought, and I just kind of laughed because I was like, then everybody scatters and I couldn't get them back together to get a better picture. But I was like, that happened twice now. That's interesting that the
It happened
person that's
for a
taking the
reason.
picture is taking the very thing you want the picture of and they're cutting it out.
Mhm.
It's like, that's interesting. Anyway, but yeah, I just thought that was like, I tried, I think 3 different times with her running back and forth going, no, we
Yeah.
still have this in it. And she would take the same picture. And it's like, how does she not understand what I'm asking for? But yeah, then everybody got squirrely and started moving because they thought we had the picture and I couldn't get everybody back together. So I was like, oh well,
Interesting.
it was what it was.
Did anything else happen at the Temple of Isis? Was there anything else?
Well, there was a lot of crying. There was a lot of channeling. So people will take you to the new temples always.
Yeah.
So in order to go to the ancient temples, not too many people know about this, but those are some of the special requests that I have for the tour guides. And some of them look at me weird, like the old ISIS one, right? Like, why would you want to go there? It's just like,
Yeah.
it's nothing. But
Mhm.
so
Telling you what,
yeah,
that's sacred ground.
so that a lot of channeling, people will just start saying messages and just I think we had some light language coming through.
I was
for
going to
some
say there was a
people
lot of
too.
light language.
A lot
Yeah.
of light language. It was just such an amazing experience where
And everybody, it wasn't just like, how sometimes you get in a group and 2 or 3 people will come forward with their gifts and talents. Everybody was.
mhm,
Everybody stepped into that. The men stepped into it, the
yeah.
women stepped
Mhm.
into it. Um, Yeah, it was like I said, by the end of that journey, when we're getting to that final destination of the pyramid and the king's chamber, we were all pretty connected by that point.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was
And so that was in this trip, but one really funny and amazing thing that happened to me at Isis Temple, I think I'm very much connected with Isis energy, multiple reasons and experiences. But in the previous trip that I had gone, we were on the boat. We couldn't get on because it was covered with water, but we could see a little bit of an arch. And so we were on this boat, right? And I tell one of the friends that went there, and I said, I really want to get in the water. And she says, me too. And I said, but how do we do it? Sarah was with us. And so I said, but I don't want to upset Sarah because, Sarah is so proper all the time. Like, I didn't want to be the disruptor of the group. And I said, Terry, I'll tell you what, let's pretend we're fighting and then you throw me in the water and then I pull you. And she goes, yeah, I like that idea. Well, I start putting my feet on the water and I have pictures of that. I'll have to send them to you. Maybe if you want to include them here, the before and after, when the temple is underwater and the experience we had. And then this previous experience too, the minute I touched the water, my hair stood up and it stayed like this, like this.
Oh, wow.
And then I feel like this electricity rushing. And so I just pull my foot back and I was like, what the fuck happened? Like, I'm sorry, what happened? Right. And then I started channeling. And then so people in the trip recorded me. And it was like a letting go. That was, I think, my first experience channeling something that I didn't intend to, because like I've tried, like I've done it with Tracy doing this and that, but it was just like, you're doing this. And it was just like an amazing connection. And then just people recorded me, giving them this, I guess, advice to let go. And it was Isis basically saying, let go of all your fears and all your troubles. I'll transmute them for you and I'll convert them into love. And that was really nice. And this second time when we went, in our group with Tracy, I feel something very similar happened to this girl that, just came and just went on the ground and started, she did, because when she came out of it, she was like, I just felt like all this sadness, all this, and then something just made me feel like it was transformed into love. So like freeing all that pain throughout the years and centuries and just transmuting it. So I'm beginning to think that's what the Isis Temple is good for. Go and transmute fear and pain into love.
I know Tracy knows this a little bit. Guardians of Magic is kind of like where I have the sci-fi action stories and so on. So right now, as we speak, matter of fact, I was doing it before I got online. I was contacting my colorist and inker as well to make sure everybody's on the same page. But eventually, there will be an Isis version of the comic book where one of the characters is Isis, and then it'll be based off of one of her students.
Nice.
So just wanted to add that. I thought that was interesting. We started talking about Isis. I'm like, well, perfect time to mention this to Tracy.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I have the first two books. I got your books.
Oh,
So
okay,
maybe
cool.
next time I see you, you got to autograph them for me.
Oh, yes, absolutely. So the book that you see is going to be converted into a comic book version. So that's the one that we're working on now. So it'll have pictures and other characters and so on. And eventually it will grow to ancient Egypt and so on. And then there'll be another version after that later on, like more modern times. And
Nice.
And then it'll be interesting how I connect all the dots.
Oh, I like
Very
this.
interesting.
It's
I
gonna
love
be
it.
Not
very
cheap.
I love where this
Not
is
cheap.
going.
It is not cheap, but it's fun. It's fun. So I got some of the pictures back. I posted it on the Instagram channel of Guardians of Magic. So some of the pictures did come back. And then with the colorist, she's going to be start working on the colors and so on.
Very nice. I'm looking forward.
Yeah, super cool.
Already a $5,000 investment already into it.
It'll all be worth it.
It'll all be worth it.
Exactly. That's what I keep telling my wife.
Now all you need to do is go on that next Egypt trip with us and experience
If there's
the
any
ice
money left in
sculpture
the bank,
yourself.
there's any money left because one comic book, that's the starting price. That's not even the full price.
Wow.
Get it
Wow.
going. If I do 6 books, someone can easily do the math. How much is that
Mhm.
going to be? But it's fun. It's very interesting, and I'm excited about it. And then I got feedback from the inker, the colorist, and the writer as well. The guy that's helped me put it in the format that it needs to be in. And so far, each one of them says, "Yeah, this is very interesting. You got something very unique here."
Yeah. Well,
That's
think
awesome.
about this, Jason, is the stuff you're learning from this. People go to college to learn these things, and they're spending way more than that to be in that classroom.
That's how I looked at it too.
I mean, this is an education along with creating a product that's now something that's accessible that you can sell and market. So
hmm
I think it's a win.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, when I was in contact in the desert and we mentioned Sarah, so I did talk to Sarah about it. I said, "Hey, you think this would be a good idea, pursuing this? What is your thoughts on it?" And then evidently it's already connected into that community as well. Like I forgot how she brought it up, but one of the guys that was at one of the events was involved with creating Pokemon. I'm like, what? I'm
Oh,
like,
wow.
Oh,
how was that connected? So somehow it was connected to something. And I was like, that's interesting. But
Yeah.
because I mentioned it from a point of view of attending the Comic Cons and so on.
hmm
And that's when she brought it up. And I was like, wait a minute, how's this person that created Pokemon is related to these events that you're going to with UFOs and stuff?
small world things.
Yeah.
Like that.
Sometimes, I don't know if this happens to you guys, but sometimes I may watch a movie or certain
Oh
shows
yeah.
and Dolores' books all over.
Oh yeah. Yeah. There's
Experiences.
how many calls Julia gets. I think that they're basing this on your mom.
Yeah. Yeah.
We did a video. It was me, Tracy, and Julia, and I brought up that topic, and I
Yeah.
was like, how much do you feel like
Yeah.
movies are connected to, the materials that your mom was writing and everything? She's like, sometimes I feel like they watch the books and then write these movies or something.
Yes. I'm
Well, I
sorry,
was
go
going
ahead.
to say that I was like, or they just remembered certain things that happened
Mhm.
in their past life or the Akashic records and so on, and they remember these things that happened. Example, Star Trek, for example, where they're channeling this ancient knowledge or these memories or something, or getting this knowledge from higher beings and so on. So, but yeah, we talked about that in one of our videos a long, long time ago.
Oh, okay, good.
Mhm.
So then, yeah, so I'm not the only one who thinks that way because I see it. And it's amazing. Some of the stories that some clients may narrate as well. I was like, this is a past life of someone that's connecting, and yeah, it's pretty interesting. And I know there's at least two movies that I know of that have quoted certain things like the subconscious is very powerful.
Oh yeah.
Like, oh, that's the Norris statement. And it's in a couple of movies. Yeah.
Yeah. Makes
Now
sense
Tracy
though.
wasn't in level one. I don't know if it was level one with us, but we were in level two, me and Tracy. I don't know
Yeah.
which class it was in, but that had one of the ladies that was doing sessions, and a lot of her clients, because of her husband, worked for either Hulu or Netflix.
Oh.
And a lot of her clients was coming from Hulu or Netflix. And I thought that was interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah. So then, I mean, if the three of us thought about it, it's gotta be right.
what are the odds of that, Three people thinking the same thing?
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm sure. I'm sure there's a lot out there and a lot more coming. And that's good because it's about the
Yeah,
awakening,
exactly.
it's about all of us coming out of this matrix,
Exactly.
and
Yeah. And that
and
was the whole point
taking
and
the
the whole
pill.
purpose.
What is it? The red pill you want to take?
Yeah. Mhm.
Pill. And
Well, in the Matrix movie, that's the pill that Neo takes to waken his mind, to wake him
yep.
up. So the blue pill was for him to go back to sleep and go back to his regular life.
Don't do the blue pill. I know there's some people that they say, oh, I just want to stay in this bubble and not know. And it's like, yeah, but once you know, everything starts getting to be more like, oh, yeah, you're gonna also do some healing and some work, but I think the world's so much more fascinating now. And it's just like a big playground. It's like,
Well, that's
just
why another thing I wanted to create ancient Egypt version of Guardians of Magic is because there's so much great information that comes from it that nobody's talking about, like mainstream wise. Yeah, they're touching on it a little bit, but I want to tell the rest of the story as a mainstream type of point of view, fill in some of those interesting gaps and throw in some interesting truth bombs into it, that'd be fun.
well, yeah, and then you're reaching a whole different audience again,
Exactly. I
It's
told Sarah, I said, I tell you what, you work on the metaphysical, I'll go work for the sci-fi side. I was like, we'll hit them from both sides,
Yeah.
And every once in a while you're at the same conference.
That's
What
right. And then we got
happened?
Tracy channeling, we got Laura doing all the trips and everything. Shoot, we're covering all the
Laura's
bases.
a good channel as well. She brought through some really powerful information throughout that trip as well. That's what I liked about it, is it was empowering everyone that was there. It wasn't just about Laura and I bringing the information. It was about everybody sharing what they were getting and empowering that. That's what I like about working with Laura, is like, we're both on that same page. Is this is about bringing a group of people into an aha moment of who they are capable of, and just expansion and having these experiences.
Yeah, just
So
letting them be their real selves
yeah,
and come out.
in a safe place, not around the guards at the temples. You see a guy that looks like that, don't do that.
So we talked about the Isis temple. Was there anything else? The King's Chamber? Was there anything else that we need to touch on? The King's Chamber?
Well, the King's Chamber, the reason we leave it at the end is because once you've worked on all of your energy points and pretty much attuned yourself, then you're ready to astral travel. So we all get a turn, and we only change two things in this new trip. And one is an extra day in Hurghada, because it's a magnificent place.
Oh, Tracy's happy. She's doing a happy dance.
Yeah, and it's gonna be a free day, which we found that we had quite a few free afternoons or free mornings, and they were never free because people were so eager to gather and do things that we ended up getting together anyway. But it's gonna be a free day, and then instead of having 2 hours in the King's Chamber, we're gonna do 4 hours.
This is the King's Chamber with the granite box, correct?
Right.
Okay. Were y'all able to get into the granite box by any chance?
Yes.
Okay.
So we rent the pyramid so that it's only our group. No one else comes in, just us, just our private group. And then we take turns. People go in the chamber, they meditate, and then, everybody else can do their own thing. But a lot of us just felt compelled to gather around the person and start singing and singing and singing.
That part to me was the best. I love doing the toning and just going off of each other with the sounds. And I will say this, because I'm claustrophobic. So one of my fears was getting up through that skinny tunnel thing. You got to climb up, half of it's that, and then it's opened up and it's fine. But I was worried about that, especially if there was someone in front of me and someone behind me. Well, not only was there someone in front of me, but then something was slowing them down, and there was someone behind me. And I felt safe the whole time. I didn't get claustrophobic in there at all. And I was just like, okay, this is not me, because just the thought that that person's in front of me and I can't go forward and I can't go backward would typically put me in that claustrophobia. And I actually wasn't in it, didn't even faze me. And I was able to go perfectly fine. So if anybody worries about that, as somebody that I can't sit in a middle seat in an airplane. That happened to me too on that trip twice. I got put in the middle seat twice, and both times I did perfectly fine. Spirit's got our back. They're going to help us get through these things. And I wasn't even fazed by it. I was so glad because, that was one of the things I was like, man, I hope I can get up there. I hope I don't end up getting anxiety or something trying to get up that tunnel. And it's bigger than I thought it was. And I was just peace and calm the whole way up and did great. So I encourage people, even if that's a fear of theirs, odds are, well, one, you can go last. That would also solve that problem because you can get out. And
Yeah.
you can always go last. We can accommodate that in any way you want us to help you with it. You may have the same experience I did where it's just that vibration there. You just feel safe. You feel comfortable. It's fine. And you get up in that room. So it's a room with that granite box in it. We all fit in there. We're all going to be together. We're going to do some magical things in there, including the time that we spend in the sarcophagus, having our own little astro travel. And yeah, it was interesting because when I got in that box, I could hear everything that was going on, the shuffling of feet, the whispering in the corner, like everything was amplified. And I was like, man, that's really distracting. Wait, no, I don't need to experience that at all. And I shifted how I was thinking. And the next thing I knew, I was out of body and they were telling me it was time to get out. So it was like, whoa, okay. Didn't it seem like that? It's like it's like you get in there and you just get settled, and then it's like, okay, time to get out. And it's like, wait, where was I? What happened?
That's why we're making it longer this time. I think we can use more time inside the chamber and take longer.
Yeah.
It's pretty.
Did anybody have an out of body experience? I know you're talking about astral travel and everything, but did anybody at the temples had an out of body experience, especially the King's Chamber?
I can share in the meantime. There's this particular lady who recently lost her son, and she was pretty obviously devastated by it. But for me, as I guess the tour guide or whatever, it was very gratifying when she shared that she had actually been. It was her greatest wish to be able to see her son again and talk to him, and so she did, because when she came out of it, she was just in shock. She was like, I was with my son. I was able to talk to him. I had him right in front of me. I mean, her experience was so vivid, so real, that this was the highlight of the trip for her. And so that was a pretty amazing one. Other people, like my brother, for example, he has that relationship with Anubis, which is like fear and respect.
Anubis?
Anubis, yeah.
Okay.
And then he shared that he had this experience where it was his teacher. I think someone else said that too. And like Tracy said, there's so many synchronicities. Somebody else said that Anubis was there with us and he was our teacher. Like back in that,
before we even went on the trip, one of the Daniel channels said, you guys will have Anubis with you. And then people were having that experience throughout.
Yeah. So that was another revelation at the King's Chamber, where we actually, a lot of us saw ourselves back in those times, like over 12,000 years is the timeline that I'm picking up, where we were being the students to do all of this, what we're now, doing here to that initiatic path, and students of the magic or manipulation of energy, whatever you want to call it. And we were all Anubis students. So he was our main teacher.
For Anubis, the same client that talked about the Sphinx and everything, same client that came in for a QHHT session. Later on, closer to the end of the session, she brought up, she couldn't say the name Anubis, so she was saying something else. And she's like, he's here. And I'm like, who's here? And she's like, the god of the underworld. And she's trying to pronounce his name, Anubi. And I was like, Anubis? And she's like, yes, he's here. And I'm like, in my office doing this QHT session, I'm like, what you mean he's here? I'm like, here? I was like, she was like, yes, you know, he had a message to share, that how she was connected to him. And then it was very interesting of afterwards, after her session, how the dots were connected, you
Mm.
know, like her job, where she worked, Anubis, God of the underworld, you know, leading you down your path and everything. And
Mhm.
she, you know, she was like, I was like, man, what do you ask Anubis? You know, and it's like, is there anything you want to ask? I'm like, where do you want me to start? So one of the things I did ask was like, how come he is like a dog? You know, like, you know, a jackal, a dog, and so on. And that was pretty cool. Her response back was like, because of man's best friend, like a friendly face of man's best friend. Like,
Mm.
you know, Tracy can vouch for, she has like two or three
Yeah,
dogs and
they're
everything.
they've
So
been all over.
yeah, and that was the connection of him having the dog features and everything. And because I was like, is it just a mask and everything? And it's like, well, Anubis can look like this, can look like that. On this planet, he can look like a certain individual on another planet. So evidently Anubis is very busy because he goes to other planets. At least that's what
Oh,
happened in the session. I was like, man, he goes to other planets?
kind
And
of makes sense. I
Yeah.
mean,
and I mean, why
we go
not?
to
I
other
mean, he's
planets.
not committed to one, and he's helping other individuals on their journey on other planets as well. So I was like, okay. And I asked a couple more questions, and I'm like, yeah, this session is getting very long. I was like, this 2 hour session is becoming 3 plus. So
Three, four,
she was knocking it
five.
out. She was a-okay.
Wow, that's been pretty interesting one.
Matter of fact, she messaged me because one of the things that, and I forgot to bring this up when we talked about the King's Chamber and the pyramids, but she messaged me a few years later because in that session she talked about a hidden chamber being revealed.
Mm.
And I was like, oh, okay. I was like, man, that sounds familiar. She goes, no, another one's going to be revealed, that they're going to find another hidden chamber. And she
Mm.
messaged me years later saying, hey, I still follow your work. I still listen to your show and everything. And she's like, here's the information that I thought was very interesting that came from how they discovered this hidden room in the pyramids and everything. I was like, yes. I was like, I heard about this. I was like, every time something new comes up, I always think about her, you know? And I'm like, so what's in this chamber kind of thing? What was cool about it, the knowledge is not in the room itself. The knowledge is inside the stone. They use their technology, and it was two parts of it. The writings, the knowledge, the script is on the other side of the stone. You see a flat side, but they were smart to cover it up. The good stuff's on the other side of the stone. And then on top of that, because of their technology, the information is literally inside the stone. The energy, the crystal, the information is inside of it. So I was like, I was like, so next time y'all go, just keep that in mind.
For
Well, we were
sure.
putting our heads up against the stones, not
Yeah.
banging them or anything, but we
I,
were
I was about
download,
to
download.
say, Tracy, wear your helmet if you're going to do
Yeah, I know.
that.
Yeah, and we didn't have enough time. Well, I wanted people to have the most time in the King's Chamber for their meditation. But now with more time, we could go to that hidden chamber and we can go to the Queen's Chamber, which is also pretty amazing to visit because of the acoustics of it. So
Mhm.
there will be more more
There'll be more.
experiences. Yeah.
Are they allowing tours underneath the pyramids? Underneath the pyramids, are they allowing tours underneath the pyramids?
You know, again, everything that we do is not allowed.
So you got to go
But
nudge,
we're allowed.
nudge, rub the fingers a little bit.
Yeah,
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 it is. You get used to seeing this.
yes. Uh-huh.
Well, next
Like,
time
okay,
y'all over there for the Sphinx, I gotta say, hey, can we go underneath the Sphinx? Jing,
yeah,
jing, jing.
wave the $20 bill.
And next thing you know, his hand's gonna go up like this, like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And and that's a really good point, right? Because and I'm glad you brought it up because that allows me an opportunity to clarify. I had people say, look, your tour costs this much, and there's other people, it's like half the price. And I'm like, yeah, well, it's half the time, one. Second, what makes our trip, might be a little pricey for some is all the money we pay to be able to do all of these things. Again, the ancient temples that we go to, they're not included in any of the tours that you catch. So we go to the new temple and then we go to the old temples, right? So that's one thing. Second, all the people we have to pay to allow us to do the things that we go there to do that are forbidden, right? Renting the pyramid, that's probably the biggest expense in our trip, because
I was
the
about to say, if you're gonna rent a pyramid, it's only your group, and you went from 2 to 4 hours. I would imagine that would be a pretty penny.
exactly. So that's probably the most expensive part. And then we have private buses, so it's only our group. And we take a couple of flights too to get from Cairo to the south and this and that. And also security. We have security guards with us at all time. Not because Egypt is unsafe. Tracy can now attest to that. But people have this belief that it's unsafe. And so when you put the security guard, and it makes it I don't know, for some reason I end up loving that, because they end up, kind of like helping out.
They do. They do. They're babysitters. They help herd the cats.
Well,
Yeah.
another thing with the
Our one
security
security
is
guy,
that
it's like, you lost two of them back there, right?
Yeah.
We're like, "Oh." Yeah. So
Yeah.
grab them.
Yeah, they really earn, whatever they get paid, they really earn it, because our groups are usually very out of the norm. And they have to be really like watching over us. Especially for some reason, people see something different in us. And we had in a lot of our participants in our group, Native Egyptians, they're just drawn to them as if they were gods and goddesses. And they will surround them and try to take pictures, and just like if they were movie stars. We had that experience happen everywhere we went, right, Tracy?
everywhere.
So,
I was like, what is happening? What?
Yeah.
They all want their picture with these. There was 2 or 3 in the group, and they all wanted their pictures with them.
Oh, okay. So this wasn't y'all. This was the other group members.
Yeah, this was in our group, and it's flattering. It's kind of like, oh, you're so beautiful. Can I get my picture with you? And the rest of us are walking on. The security guy's like, come on, you gotta get back in your group, because they're like, hey, doing.
So this is a real thing. This is not like a scam. Hey, I take a picture with you, and then
nope,
hey, I
just
need
want
money
to get
because
their
I made it
picture
look
with you.
beautiful.
No, they for some reason they find these people like really, really extremely attractive. And like Tracy said, I mean, it's flattering sometimes, because they make us feel like we're movie stars or gods and goddesses, because they see you with such admiration that it was like, I mean, and so the security guard helps with that, at least that figure of respect, where, hey, back off, and so
it makes sense.
There was a couple times where he probably had to earn his keep just by crowd control, but it was never because we were in
crowd
danger.
Control. There you go.
It was kind of more, again, to keep the ones that were getting, oh, can I get my picture with you? And they'd stop to do that, and everybody else is still walking. So you'd have to, like, come on, we got to keep going. And so the security guys they were a lot of fun, actually.
Yeah.
They were,
I bet.
they were a nice
Yeah,
addition.
they were a lot of fun.
I'm pretty sure some of those security guys are pretty funny. Yeah, because another thing is, when you're at the markets and so on, some of those, I don't know if y'all went to the markets and stuff, but usually some of these markets, they're there to sell as well. They're there to make a living.
We did the market, and we did it during Ramadan.
Oh,
where everyone on the planet that lived in the area was there. Yeah, that was insane to go to the market.
Yeah,
at that point. But
if there's 1,000 people usually in the Cairo market, this time there were about 5,000 people there, and it was just
wow.
And that happened to us on the first day, so that was the
we got
beginning.
separated in 3 different places. And our poor tour guides were trying to figure out where everybody was at. But luckily she told everybody where the bus was picking us up at. And
Mhm.
it, by some miracle, we all ended up there at the same
Yeah.
time.
I wonder
We
if
were
you was
watched
like,
over so well.
after the first day, you're like, is this a sign of things to come, you know?
I know.
Oh,
All,
Yeah.
it certainly triggered some couple of people, but then, you know, it all went away right away. It was our first day, and the tour guides were not used to people like us, but we did try to warn them, because I said some people want to experience the market experience, which is the dealing and wheeling and, you know, this what makes Cairo, right? Especially what you see in the movies, and you see, you know, this hustling and bustling, and it's fun. For some people, it's a lot of fun, including myself. And there are some people that want to experience the going to the expensive shop with air conditioning and tea, and that's okay too. So I did tell our guide multiple times, let's separate the group. No, we're not separating. But these people want to have their experience. I want them to, no, we're just going to pass by the market and we're going to go to the shop. And yeah, that was her biggest mistake. We passed by the market and then
half the people were gone.
Yeah, I can't imagine that going smooth.
Yeah.
She learned quick.
No, and it's their first or second day in Egypt, so they're all like, wow, 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 and they're seeing all these things, and then, you know, people selling them this and selling them that. They didn't have the experience that they gain later, right, on how to deal and wheel and over. So
I think afterwards everybody started realizing, oh, we're going to get a lot of opportunity to be around the markets, and yeah, so that would be different next time for sure.
So tip for those that are listening and you're thinking about going to Egypt and Cairo, don't buy everything on the first day. You'll find that you'll see the exact same things all throughout Egypt.
And over.
And if you wait until Hurghada, it's gonna be the same things, a lot cheaper without the hustling.
Yeah.
What are some of the things did y'all buy anything? What are some of the things y'all bought?
Well, I got myself a little Anubis statue and some scarves.
Oh, mine's in the metaphysical room.
Oh, yeah. So I got some oils, statues. When we were at the Osiris temple, I got a stalk of wheat that was like this kid and his father had done this design with the wheat. And that sucker made it all the way home. And I gave it to my dad because he was a wheat farmer. You know, before he retired, he grew a lot of wheat out here. And so I'm like, I'm bringing this home, and it made it all the way perfectly. So
it was
that
meant
was
to
kind
be.
of fun. It was meant to be, and best I ever spent. But yeah, it was, I mean, I was mild. I barely bought anything. Laura gifted me a cool rattle that I've used in sound healing stuff and brought to Arizona with me, and it was amazing to have that along. And then we've got, what do you call the
Staff of Power?
Yeah, the Staff of Power. Thank you. We got that. We had a whole ceremony with that. That was amazing. In the water, where we scared off all the other people.
Yeah.
We always laugh. We're like, those poor guys. But we had a great time.
Yeah. Yeah, so some of the things that you would see pretty much everywhere is, I mean, clothing, you know, certain tunics that have Egyptian motifs, dresses, scarves, a lot of scarves, and pants. There's a specific design, kind of like yoga pants, and there's some that are split open and the legs, and they're super comfortable and super nice for the area. And then all of, I guess, memorabilia from the gods, you know, every single god, you can find them in different stones, different sizes, jewelry, fake jewelry, real, you know, stone.
What's the beetle that I'm trying to say? The
Scarab?
Scarab. Yeah, the scarab beetle. There's a lot of those. I think I came home with something like that. Yeah, there's just all kinds of things. A hat.
Cats, a lot of cats, yeah.
Yeah.
Made of different
Oh,
things.
the cat statues?
Yeah.
Okay. At first I thought Tracy took a cat from Egypt.
There's a lot of cats.
I got to hold a kitten at the Isis temple.
Oh, yeah.
I was like, oh, Tracy put it back.
Yeah. They heard us, or they heard three of us, I think, were looking for the kittens because someone said there was kittens. So of course one of the guys is like, come. And then he's doing the thing. But I mean, I got to hold an ISIS kitten. So
Yeah.
I paid him. Like, thank you. Because he had to crawl in a little tunnel
Yeah.
thingy and go get the kittens. And
Get the kittens.
yeah, we got to play with the kittens.
Yeah,
Was there-
Isis Temple is always full of cats, and
Full
the
of
pyramid
cats.
is always full of dogs.
Yeah.
What was the last one?
The pyramid is always full of dogs. There's a bunch of Anubises there, dogs.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah.
That's,
And Isis
I,
Temple is
I
full
always
of cats.
find that a little bit interesting. What are the odds that there's a bunch of cats at the Isis temple? And then you just mentioned that
Right.
there's a bunch of
Right?
dogs at the
Yeah.
pyramids. So
Yep.
do you feel like one's masculine? Well, I guess one is definitely feminine, but do you find that the pyramids is masculine?
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If I guess I hadn't thought about it, but yeah, I would say that energy was more masculine or masculine.
Yeah, just like you, Tracy. I haven't thought about it before, but it just feels like, like clicks right away.
Mm-hmm.
Was there any?
I'm even sitting there now. I'm sitting there going, and the Sphinx. What did that feel like? It's kind of a balance.
That's both, actually.
Yeah,
Well,
it's got both.
I guess it's been so many things throughout time. I guess it is balanced.
Yeah.
Yeah, really, it's been changed around.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Was there any other topics y'all wanted to talk about that we did not talk about? I know y'all mentioned the King's Chamber, which we talked about, astral travel, Isis Temple. Was there anything else? And we'll go into more details after this,
Mhm.
but I didn't want to
yeah, I
get
think
off the subject.
it's just kind of one of those, like, I think the idea today is just to just share what a vast experience it can be if you let it. You can close that down too. We've seen that a couple of times in the trip too, where it's just like sometimes our stuff's going to come up, and we do our best to hold that hold the space for that for people, because if they get triggered in something, it can get emotional on that trip if you get triggered in something. And Laura and I are there to hold the space and help you through that if that happens. But for the most part, I think anyone that had been triggered in anything, I would say everybody still had a really good trip, had an amazing trip, worked through the things. And then, when you work through something, then it just opens you up to so much more. Just any kind of trip like that. And like you were saying, Jason, are you planning on going in other places? Yeah, there's sacred sites all over. And
Yeah.
it's like, grab a dart and throw it at the map. Let's see where we're going next, and
The reason why I ask is when y'all do the one to Atlantis, I want to go.
oh yeah, there we go.
Once when
Make
y'all
that
figure out a way to get down there, down in the ocean,
That's right.
sign me up.
We'll all get that scuba gear on and take a little dive. But yeah, it's not just about Egypt. It's about how we are remembering
Yes.
and the experiences everybody was having. One of the at one point I was seeing the Arcturian beings manipulating energy and making it malleable so that it was easy to move, and then they would solidify it again, and they were able to move it through small spaces or corridors and stuff like that. And I think one of our questions was, how did they get these huge sarcophaguses down these halls and into these chambers? How are they able to turn it and get it in there? How is that all happening? And first off, I never thought that was anything more than a spaceship myself. I'm like, this has got to be a ship. It's like, and so I just sat with that. And we had so many cool experiences. What was the name of that one, Laura? That was the Serapeum. And that was the one where you were leading that beautiful circle, and one of our people started to get faint and channeling, and then and this is how amazing this group is. Intuitively, one of the guys went and stood behind her, and as soon as she got done, she was just like you could tell she was going to fall, and he just went scoop and just helped her gently, and then she just kind of got herself you know, like got back in her body and was like, okay, and stood, and he helped her stand up and she was good. And we're all just like, you know, what would have happened if he wasn't over there?
Right.
But he just intuitively went. And it was, you know, I was just in awe at some of the stuff that would happen. And we were so divinely taken care of and guided so perfectly in the temples. We went to the Valley of the Kings, and there were some really cool things. Cool. What do you call those? I guess the chambers,
The
burial
tombs?
Tombs.
The tombs, yeah.
Yeah, just going into those, and some of those you're like going down, down, down. It's like, am I ever gonna get there? It's like they're deep,
Yeah.
and yet you get in there and it's like, wow, this is just amazing. And we were picking up one of the tombs, and it was really weird. Was that you that was looking for me, Laura? And I was just about to start going up. I was like, well, I guess I better start that journey up. And then all of a sudden I just stop and I go, I need to find Laura. And I turn and she's looking for me. And I'm like, she goes, oh, there you are. I was just looking for you. I'm like, that's weird because I just had this total need to find you just then. Yeah. And we had this whole experience with one of the little side rooms down in the tomb. And
those are one of just an example of the amazing things that happened. Like what Keep been saying, we didn't have to speak about the things that we knew we needed to do. And that happened to Tracy and I a lot of times. Like she was looking for me, and then all of a sudden I feel called to go find her, and vice versa, like multiple times. Or, you know, someone else in our group is like all of a sudden, boop, like a red eye turned on, and okay, we need to, you know, head to that direction.
Oh, there was one time, this one was cool, where we were on the Nile and there was a group of us up in the lounge talking, and maybe half the group. We were up there just talking away. And pretty soon Sarah and like 4 others come up and they said, we're here. And we're like, okay. Like, okay. And we're like, oh, that's awesome. And they're like, well, what did you want? And we're like, what are you talking about? And she goes, you sent a text that what did the text say? It was, we're up in the lounge. You need to come.
Yes. So I get this text message because it was one of those free times that we had, right? So we're doing our own thing. And then all of a sudden, I don't remember what I was doing or wanting to do. And I find a couple of other people in the cruise, right? And I find them. And then I get this text message from one of the members of our group. And he says, come to the lunch like now. I'm like, okay, well, they want us up.
Yeah, it sounded urgent. It was like,
right?
You need to come to
and
the
it's
lounge
urgent
now.
too. Yeah, like now. So the people that I had just found, okay, they want us now. Let's go. And so we get there. It's like, what do you need us for? What do you call us? Because we get there and they're like, la la la, like doing their own
we're just talking and sharing.
Yeah, like ignoring us. Right? I was like, okay, so what was the urgency? Like, why did you call us? And like, what do you mean? I said, you sent a text message. And then this girl, she's like, no, I didn't. I've been talking to
her. I was the one talking to her. So I was like, no, we've been sitting here talking.
And then I showed them the text.
She didn't send a message.
Yeah. And then I showed them the text message, and it's obviously time stamped, right? And it was like 10-15 minutes before. And they're both like, no, my phone is like, I think she had it all the way in her purse or something somewhere, right?
Yeah. You don't think it was a delayed text by any chance, right? It was not a delayed text. Like it just happened.
No, it just never happened. She had no memory of doing it.
No.
I was sitting there talking to her. I had no memory of her playing with her phone or getting her phone out of any kind. I was like, no, we've been sitting here talking and nobody was on their phones. So yeah, so that was really interesting.
I know.
For some reason they wanted us all together. I don't know that we ever figured out why, but we did. We all stayed together at that point.
We stayed together, and I think we ended up doing some channeling or something.
And some energy work. There was that I do remember that. There was some energy work being done. And so we were doing some healing work on each other after that. So yeah, but that one was wild. That one was like, what just happened? Where did that text come from?
Yeah, and I asked that question too. I asked this girl and I said, well, maybe you sent this text before and it's delayed. And she was like, no, like why would I? Like, why would I send you that message? Like
Yeah, that was crazy.
And not only that, like, you know, Tracy had been talking to her face to face all this time, and then she said, well, I think she's this very dyslexic, right? And she said, for me to write a message like that, I had to like really focus. Like, it's not
Yeah,
something that I can just like,
there's no
you know,
way she could carry on a conversation and kind of half text and
yeah.
send it off.
Oh,
Yeah, she
So
has to focus when she's doing a message. So
that made it even more
maybe
amazing.
that message came from a different timeline, right, Tracy? Since we talked
that's
about
what
timelines.
I think so.
Hmm.
Yeah.
I have another timeline thing that's blowing my mind because
Yeah.
I've
Uh-oh.
lived here. I lived here in this house for 12 years now, and I've never seen a squirrel in our development. They're just not here. We don't have
What?
squirrels.
What are you, Key West?
I don't know why we don't have them over here, but we just don't have squirrels. At least in the
You can
timeline
have
I
all
was
of
in.
mine. We have plenty.
Yeah. And I was like, the other day I was driving down one of our streets and there was a squirrel ran across the road and I said, oh my gosh, we have a squirrel in our neighborhood. And my son was in the car with me and he's like, oh yeah. And I said, how come we don't have any squirrels over by our house? And he's like, well, probably because of the dogs. But I'm thinking, you know, and so it made me
Nah,
start
those squirrels
thinking,
don't care about no dogs.
right? I was like, but I started thinking, no, I've been driving these streets for 12 years and I've never had a squirrel cross my path or run and, you know, see a squirrel run up a tree or anything. I've never seen one until this very moment. This is the very first squirrel I've ever seen in this development. And I
That
lived
is
in two different
interesting.
parts of this development. Anyways, since then, I've been seeing squirrels everywhere here. Not in my yard yet, but it's like I get out and I get in the car and I'm driving and a squirrel will cross my path. I'm like, I really must need to know what the squirrel message is, you know, but at the same time, I'm like, I'm not on the same timeline. I changed timelines again. I'm on a timeline where there's squirrels in my neighborhood. It's
Wow.
like, yeah, but it was very, very apparent that they wanted me to realize that it wasn't a fluke that I saw that one. Like now I'm seeing them like they're all over. And I'm like, interesting. And to everybody else, they've probably been there forever. But for me, I'm like,
Wow.
that's the first time I'm seeing them. So I'm new to this timeline.
Interesting.
Yeah.
You're gonna have to bring that up either in one of your sessions. You're gonna have to find out about it, or one of your friends' sessions. Say, hey, can I put you under? Find out about these.
Yeah, I got questions. Where the squirrels come from?
We gotta
Yeah.
find out about these squirrels. Just make sure. I know you probably didn't watch Rick and Morty, but hopefully the squirrel problem is not that Rick and Morty episode where they
Yeah,
come to get you.
that's funny. But yeah, I think just everything that we've done has been very activating.
Yeah,
The
it
Red
sounds like
Sea, that
the
was very activating.
the trip overall, like yes, yeah, providing knowledge because I'm assuming y'all do have a tour guide that's providing some knowledge and then y'all providing your input, but also it sounds like it's spiritual healing, it's a spiritual trip as well, letting go, you know,
Yeah.
gaining what
Yep.
you gain from it. So it sounds like it's more physical, it's spiritual as well.
It's more spiritual, yeah.
Yeah.
And to be quite honest, and I'm sorry for our tour guide, but he's mostly there just as a formality.
Mhm. I bet. Make sure you're not doing what you're not supposed to be doing.
Yeah,
You know,
Right.
because you know we end up doing our own thing and telling our own story, and we don't. I just figure, you know, and it's something that I'm gonna make very clear this time. There wasn't a need in the previous group, but everything that they talk about, you can find it everywhere on the internet. And the stuff we talk about or the stuff we experience,
absolutely.
because there was a point where we had to tell them, you know what? Say your thing in the bus while we're on the way, but when we get there, let us do our thing. And just
Yeah.
like don't worry
We just
about
want to
explaining
a free
anything.
walk through this temple. We're here
Yeah.
to integrate with the energies, not the
Right.
stories.
Right. And you want to
And
share your experiences, what you experienced yourself
Exactly.
and what the
yeah.
And
group has
And
experienced.
he got pretty good about that.
yes. Yeah.
So
And
yeah.
he finally understood, yeah, that we
Yeah.
care about the origin, the story, the power of the land. And that's another thing that was great about it because everybody was speaking of part of the story. And then when we got there and we shared, we put the whole story or the essence of the place or whatever the place needed together. That's our intention. That's what we go there to do.
Those
I
damn
ended up
rulers.
having a client, I can't remember what her full story was, but she was connected to the obelisks, especially the ones at the Luxor Temple where they got separated.
Mhm.
Oh, okay. That was a
So
client or one of the
yeah,
members on the trip?
it was a client. And it was just in the last week or two, but they were connected to the obelisk and they were going to be going to Egypt and this was a Daniel journey, and she was asked to pay attention to her. There's an obelisk with her light language in it or something. I can't remember, but there was a big message around when she's in Egypt to pay attention, to look at them, because there's going to be an inscription in there that she's going to find familiar, and it'll probably be activating for her. But yeah, just since we were talking about that, I popped in. I'm like, oh yeah.
I
Yeah.
wonder if it's going to be inside the stone or on the outside.
Mm,
Oh yeah.
interesting.
You know, like
Yeah.
that situation with the pyramid with my client, how she was like,
Mhm.
it's on the other side of the stone and it's inside the stone. I was like,
Mm.
oh boy, got some challenges ahead of us. If someone's interested in knowing more, what is the website? What's the best way to find out more? Is there a website? Is there a Facebook page? What do you have?
You can go to tracymayhem.com and just click on the Egypt link, and it'll take you to the main link that Laura has set up for us.
Mhm.
And then if I can't remember it offhand, if you want to give them the actual link directly to that.
Yeah, I can send it to you, Jason, and you can post it in the description.
Okay.
But it's www.mitre, like my last name, mitre.mx/travel/Egypt.
Okay.
Or if you just go to the main page, just click on travel and then Egypt.
Okay. And that link will be in the description. So I know we've talked about cost a little bit, and I know that's probably on a lot of people's minds and everything. So what would this trip cost? And I know you mentioned it's longer. How long is the trip and how much does it cost? And what people should that you would recommend as certain tips of like what to prepare for as well for this trip? Like what to bring,
Mhm,
uh, any suggestions, because you've done a few of them so far.
mhm,
What are some of the things like, hey, don't forget this and don't forget that?
mhm. So those are some of the things that we talk about in our meetings because we do hold a couple of meetings, Zoom
Okay.
meetings before the trip to, get everybody acquainted and talk about this, tips and advice to go to Egypt. But the main one I strongly recommend first, so you have to prepare besides financially, right? Psychologically and physically. And so psychologically, it's going with the mindset that this is going to be a trip where you're going to be activating and developing a lot of psychic abilities like light language, channeling, astral traveling, and uh, many more that you may have that you don't remember you have. And then biologically, I strongly recommend having a lighter diet. Ideally, 20 to 30 days before the trip, and that's a strongly recommended because energy in Egypt is very, very high. And Tracy can tell you that. And when you get there, having your body full of the things that you're accustomed to eat at home, which is usually, I don't know, it could be like the good old American diet, right? Like eggs and ham and meat, a lot of meat in your system, it's going to be really hard for your body to adjust.
Mm,
And so if you, again, and you don't have to do it, it's just strongly recommended that if you eat meat every day, try eating maybe half less. And you don't have, that's what I'm saying, 20 to 30 days, because you don't have to make the change drastically. You can start little
Yeah.
by little, right? Like if
And
you,
we end up eating a lot there.
oh yeah,
There's food all the time.
for the meat part, is it because they don't serve a lot of dishes with meat? Is that why you want to
no,
cut back on it?
no,
It's just,
there's a
I guess
lot
the
of
meat
meat.
part is like, hey, like, for
Their meat
example,
is very fresh and organic.
Yes.
gotcha.
That's
Well,
where I was gonna go.
Um,
Our
like in
meat,
Dolores
yeah.
Cannon's book, you want to cut back on meat because you want to raise your vibration. You
exactly,
know, it's high energy. So I got you.
exactly. So
Also,
there's
you're going to want to hydrate, but that's not a problem either because they
right.
always provide you with water.
Yeah, exactly. So there's a couple of components about meat, for example, because it takes a lot longer for your body to process it. And so if it's still processing all of that, because meat can take even 18 days to process, depending on your body and depending how active you are. Many people don't know this, but meat can stay in your system for a lot longer than a fresh vegetable or fruit. So that's one reason. The other reason is you have to get your body used to the lighter food because Egypt does not have everything they grow is very organic. The animals, they still follow the very ancient and old traditions of, processing the meat and how they kill the animal and how they do all of that. And you'll see, even Cairo is such a big metropolis, you'll see a lot of places where they're cultivating the food and vegetables and meats that you eat. So because it's so light, if you switch your diet drastically like that, you're going to end up feeling sick. It's not that you're necessarily sick, but your body is shifting gears on how to process the elements that you're putting inside your body. That's the main reason. It doesn't have anything to do with religious beliefs or anything. No, it's a recommendation that I have learned. Somebody advised me and told me actually, the person that I learned all of this Atlantean and this is Matias De Stefano. I was with him in 2022, where we spent 9 days in a row, spending the whole night inside the pyramid. So this is something that I learned from him that I recommended, and it helped tremendously. And I follow that from now on. And so that's why I recommend it too. So that's one, the diet. The other thing is, bring enough cash. Don't be intimidated when people are trying to sell you something because they're really friendly. All they're trying to do is, make money. And the economy, especially in Cairo, is not very good for them. So they're going to try to make a lot of money out of you. And I can't stress this enough. They are very literal and they will believe you. If you're walking into a temple and they offer you something and you said, I'll be back, and when I come out, they will learn your name, they will learn your smell, and they're gonna hunt you down.
I've seen it. Don't say, get me on my way out. Nope, they will. And
And
they will
when
expect you to buy something.
Yeah, and when you're on your way out and they're gonna say to you, but you promised, you told me, and I haven't sold it, and I've been waiting for you. So don't do that. Just tell them no
And
thanks.
don't let them hand it to you. If you could possibly help it, don't let them hand it to you.
Yeah.
Because then once it's in your hands, then they're expecting money.
Mm-hmm.
They're not handing it to you so you can look at it. They're handing it to you so you can pay them.
Yeah. And then again, hold off. Don't buy everything on the first day in Cairo. We're gonna come back to Cairo because we land in Cairo, we spend a day or two, then we go to the south, and then in the last couple of days we come back to Cairo. So don't buy everything on the first day. There's plenty of places where you're gonna find them in better shape, a lot cheaper, without anybody harassing you for it.
So with that being said, don't be like my friend when he came to New Orleans and he blew his whole budget the first night. And then he had to go home and he was supposed to be here for 5 days. And I'm like, why are you leaving so soon? I lost all the money. He's like, I'm broke now.
Like that.
I have to go back home. I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah, and
don't buy everything on the first day, people.
Bring a scarf, especially in April, is not so bad, but the winds in December, January, and February could be a little bit strong. That's why people cover their faces and their heads because the sand will fly and it's gonna be embedded in your hair. So
is that why they sell a lot of scarves you mentioned earlier?
Yeah. Yeah, if you don't have one to bring, you can easily acquire one.
Yeah.
They sell a lot of scarves there. And they're pretty. I love mine. I think I got a couple of them actually.
Yeah, I don't wear scarves, but I love the artwork. I bought a couple of them and then I passed down the tip to the people because they're super affordable, right? And I don't wear them.
I paid $4 or $5 or something for a scarf.
But I frame them and I either keep them or give them away, and they're great. The artwork they do is pretty amazing. So
How
Yeah,
long is the trip? Is it 14 days? How long is it?
17 days.
17. Woo. I
Yeah.
years ago when I looked into the Egypt trip, they had a 7 and a 14. So yours is 17.
Yeah,
Wow.
it's long.
And it'll feel like,
Wow.
what? We just got here yesterday and we're going home?
Yeah.
That surprised me. I mean, if anybody was like 17 days, oh my gosh, that's a very long time, da da da. And that was rattling through my head. And I was like, that's a long time. If you can do that trip, I know for some people getting that kind of time off of work might be a little challenging, but if you can do that, it it's an amazing trip and it will go fast. And next thing you know, you're on your way home and you're like, but there's a piece of me I'm leaving here because
Mhm.
I've just become part of this part of the world now.
Yeah.
So I understand completely why people go back to Egypt.
Yeah.
It
And
sounds like there's so much to do, like you need all that time.
yeah.
There's so much. And um like the trip that Laura's planned here, she's squeezed as much into everything. There's mornings we're all getting up, and our eyes are still half open and we're getting on hot air balloons and four-wheeler rides and doing buggies and we're doing fun things too in that trip,
Uh-huh.
right? Like it's not, we're doing the temples, but we're also getting to snorkel and swim, and there's a lot of, and then when we're on the boat on the cruise, that's when that boat's actually moving, which usually they do at night, but it's so pretty to just sit and watch. I was amazed. I think myself, like in my head, Egypt was, you always see the pictures of the pyramids and the desert.
Mhm.
And there's a lot of tropical, beautiful land in Egypt. It's beautiful there. And going down the Nile, I was just like, man, I could not have imagined how beautiful it was. And then you get to see the farmers out working in their fields, and they're out there with their carts and their animals, and they're, doing their thing. And you really feel like you travel back in time.
Absolutely.
They do a great job. I don't know if they do that on purpose, but it's amazing. You feel like you traveled back in time, and it's like you're watching a movie, but you're in the movie.
Yeah,
Amazing.
absolutely.
I
And yeah,
forgot to ask this question earlier. So you mentioned the Nile. I'm glad you brought that back up. And I think I mentioned this to Sarah, but since they have the Nile and the US has the Mississippi, do you see if there's any connections between the two? We did have a viewer that did say something about it, and I thought that was interesting. But before I say anything, has that ever thought come across your mind? Like, is there any either metaphysical connection or physical connection? Because when me and Tracy was talking about it, the Nile goes from south to north and the Mississippi goes north to south. And I wanted to get your thoughts on it.
no, it's never come across in my
Okay.
experience as anything identical. I know the river has a purpose, but for what we do, bringing up the ancient wisdom of the Atlanteans to now, which is what the Nile does, is not connected, at least not in the same essence for the initiatic path.
Gotcha.
Mhm.
So from the viewer that left a comment, and I thought that was interesting. Her thought or her comment was that the reason why that is the Mississippi and the Nile is because at one time when the earth was shifting and everything, that the Mississippi was on top of the Nile at one time. So it was like a shift and that they were connected. And then as time went on, the two continents drifted
Mhm.
away. I was like, okay, well, that's pretty cool. That's interesting. But then I was
Yeah.
like, but what happened to Atlantis? Because it was in between. So that was one. And then the second thing that I thought was interesting was the reason for that is the similarity is the mirror effect of energy. For the United States, the Mississippi is our Nile, and
Mhm.
you could say Louisiana or New Orleans is like our Egypt,
Egypt. Yeah,
you
I could
know?
see that.
I can
And
see that too.
another thing that's crazy that New Orleans does is, we have Mardi Gras and it's, you have Cleopatra, the crew of Cleopatra's crew of Isis. Well, I don't think there's a crew of Isis, but they might be because I'm learning as well, and I've lived here all my life, that there's crews of sub crews and sub crews where they don't even have like a parade per se, but you have Toth, the crew of Toth,
Mhm.
a Toth. There's other ones as well that represents Egypt. And I was like, man, what are the odds that, true, these people are finding all these names and everything. But I think, oh, there is crew of Isis. There is.
Mhm.
I always thought that was interesting how we have these Mardi Gras crews and so on, and it has the ancient Egypt, ancient Greece, and so on. That's why I wanted to ask that question. I forgot to ask it earlier about that. Like, has that ever
Mhm.
came across any of your work?
I have been told in a lot of the work that we did in Egypt and then went and continued the work in Argentina, it was because of the mirroring. So Egypt represents the old wisdom, and now South America will be the new wisdom. And there is a mirror connection, meaning that they have the similarity of the Nile River, but it's down in Argentina in a place called Rosario, Argentina.
Oh,
There's
interesting.
mhm. There is even the monument of the flag where there's a scripture where it's supposed to be a testament or a statement for those who would be coming from the old world into the new one. It's not going to happen until 100 to 200 years for what we were told. However, though, we keep looking for Atlantis in the middle of the ocean, where we have to remember when Atlantis fell, most of the people that took the wisdom and the technology went to the four corners of the world. That's why you see a lot of similarities with Native American cultures,
Mhm.
Egypt, and India as well. So, India, they also have their gods and goddesses that are blue in color, right? The Mayans, they had the representation of blues. The Aztecs, with their god of the underworld or the best friend of man to guide them into the underworld, is a dog, a hairless dog, like Anubis. And so in Zion Mountain and all that, from Zion all the way to the Atlantic to the Bahamas, that was one of the main areas where one of the outer rings of Atlantis was located, and all of that ring, the part of that ring shifted to that area. So you have Atlanta, Georgia, which is called Atlanta for a reason.
It has crossed my mind.
Mhm. Yep. And then we have Zion Mountain, which was at that point, it is said that under that mountain, one of the main pyramids, because Atlantis had a lot of pyramids, shifted under that and it's buried under that. That's why it's such an energetic place. It's also part of the reason why Dolores Cannon was guided to live in that part of Arkansas, because all of that, from what we now know as the Atlantic Ocean, when Atlantis fell, that part of that outer ring was pushed all into what is the east coast of North America.
Hmm.
So that's probably why you have a lot of people remembering and continuing the parade, and they remember the great masters, right? Which was Thoth, Isis, Seth, probably too, Nephthys, and Anubis.
Of course, the ancient Greeks as well,
Right.
for the parades. But yeah, that's very interesting. But yeah, that is true. I studied Edgar Casey's work as well, and
Mhm.
he has said, we think that Atlantis just fell and got destroyed,
Mhm.
but that wasn't the case. There was like warnings, like people
Mhm.
knew what was happening. People knew that things. So if people were leaving Atlantis and going to different regions of the
Yeah.
world, it's not like it all happened all of a sudden. People were leaving for like years ahead of time because they
Yeah.
knew what was going on with their leaders, with the world at that time, the things that they were getting involved with and doing. And, they probably had a Tracy at their time that was doing channeling, and they probably had a Laura that was having certain visions, and they probably had their versions of podcasts and YouTube's like, yeah, shit's not right now. We better leave.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So, and when they did leave Atlantis, I mean, it was like like you said, all the four corners of the world and everything, you know, they just spread out. It's funny how we're connecting all the dots tonight, huh?
Yeah, exactly. We are, yeah, so we are more connected than we think they are. And then in all this saying and connecting the dots, you would think, or people would think, well, what's the purpose of all this, right? I had people telling me, well, why do you focus so much on Atlantis and Lemuria? I mean, they're lost civilizations, focus on the now. Well, that's exactly why, because when we have knowledge of something that was done before, we can do it again. And we, at least those of us who believe in this philosophy and are willing to do the initiatic path, is because we believe the world can go back to being the utopia of the world that once was, right?
Oh yeah,
Being
it's
able to
important.
heal our bodies, being able to have this superhuman powers, bring magic back to reality and use it in a good way. Because we had many thousands of years where humanity was living in this utopia as we dream it to be, right? So when we know that has happened before and we can connect with that energy, we can become it.
Absolutely. We could bring it
Exactly.
in that energy. Was there anything else you would like to share about the trip? Anything else? Did we touch all the bases? Did we go over?
Yeah, just a quick rundown. So the 17 days include landing in Kaido. We spend there a couple of days, one day to get acquainted with the energy. I always recommend we rest that day, but it's never worked out that way. People decide to go out and do whatever, and that's okay too. And so then we leave from Kaido, we fly to Luxor, and then from Luxor, we get on the Nile cruise to go all the way down south to Abu Simbel, which is the southest part of Egypt that we can reach. And then we go all the way back on the Nile River for 7 days. Then we drive to Hurghada, where we go into the Red Sea. We swim with dolphins, we snorkel, we scuba dive,
I
and
didn't know there was dolphins over there.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, we got some good footage of dolphins.
Yeah, we got some good dolphins.
Nice.
We go to an island there, and then there we have and throughout this we have a day where we go to the Valley of the Kings. We go there walking, and then we also go there early in the morning to see the sunrise on a balloon, hot air balloon. So we have the hot air balloon experience. We have safari rides in the desert, racing. We have
Wonder who's the winner of that one, huh? The one with all the
Tracy.
experience.
Last time Tracy got so mad because they put her in the slow group and she wanted to be in the fast
I'll
one.
know better next time.
Yeah.
So we do that in the desert. Oh, we visit. So typically I don't like riding camels in Kaido because I don't like the way they treat them. I think Kaido, because it's so touristy, it's overwhelming to me, the abuse that I see those camels take. If you're in our group, we take you somewhere near between Hurghada. We take you to visit a family who lives in the middle of nowhere, technically in the middle of the desert. And they're a small community, self-sustained community. They have their own pharmacy, which is only herbs, nothing else but herbs. That's their pharmacy. And they raise the camels, and you see the difference. These camels are well treated. The children are well behaved. The women and the family. So if you want to ride a camel, that's where we will take you to do that. So we do that as well. And then we go to Hurghada. We swim in the Red Sea. You want to scuba dive, you want to snorkel, you can do that. It's not mandatory, but it's there for you to experience, or just have fun with both. The guides that are our guides, our tour guides in those areas, they're super fun. They're young, they're always upbeat, they're always nice, and there's gonna be plenty of food, delicious food. And then this time, instead of flying back to Kaido, that's another thing we changed. We're gonna drive back to Kaido because
it turns out to be faster.
Right.
With all the sitting and waiting to get on the plane, fly, then sitting and waiting for a bus to come get you to take you to the next place. We did the math.
Yeah, and not only that, the experience at the airport is so hectic because you have to go through 2 or 3 different securities in Egypt. So they're very strict, you know, that you go through one security and then another one, and then they
And
tend
they
to
were
be,
taking everybody's stuff.
yeah,
They're like,
yeah, they're,
you have fingernail clippers in here? Not anymore.
yeah, yeah,
Like,
exactly. And
okay.
so,
That's a
you know,
danger.
yeah, so I figure we were like floating in this beautiful, vibrant energy, all the experience in Hurghada. And then we go to the airport and it was like, eh. So I'm like, nope, that's not gonna happen anymore. Whereas
Yeah.
when we took the bus, yeah, it's gonna be a long ride, maybe 4 hours, but they stop by in the middle of the way. And that allows us time to connect more with the people because it's our story. I mean, we even had QHHT sessions on the bus, you know,
Mm.
because we have this time to share, and then people can see, relax, drink, go to the bathroom, whatever. So
Yeah.
it's a lot more enjoyable experience.
Yeah.
And then we
Yeah.
go back to Cairo and then we visit the Sphinx and the pyramids. We usually visit them during the day first, and then we come back later on when it's our private tour time. And then we end the next day. It's going to be a free day for those who want to stay and experience more. And then that's it. It's the end of our trip. So that's pretty much, in summary, all of our trip.
Yeah. When you say it, it sounds like you were saying, there's like 13 temples we go to during that Nile cruise. We go to Aswan. Yeah, it's just endless. There's so much.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's not included with the group price or the travel price? What's not included? Like you find that people are like, oh, I thought this was included. You know, what's some of the things
Airfare
that
is not included. Most of the meals are provided. You might want to buy snacks or something like that. That wouldn't be included. If you're buying souvenirs, obviously, or oils or something. I think there was a couple of dinners that maybe we had to buy on our own.
Yeah.
At certain hotels, we'd get
Yeah.
there and we had to get our own dinners, but most of
Yeah.
it's
And that can be adjusted. So, especially in the cruise, you have breakfast, lunch, and dinner included all the days. I purposefully did not include dinner on the last days. I think it was the last 3 nights, because in previous experiences, most people tend to not go to dinner or want to go somewhere else. But again, we stayed at a hotel that was different, and luckily it had multiple restaurants. So they even had a sushi restaurant and multiple. But that's the reason why they weren't included. This time we can include them again because this time it was different. This time everybody wanted to be together again for dinner because they liked it so much, the being togetherness the whole time. And so I guess this trip we're just gonna include them as well.
you mentioned hotels. Which hotels? Is it like Egyptian hotels or is it like,
No, they're mostly like Marriott or Hilton.
in case
Egypt
anybody
has,
was wondering?
nice. They're
yeah,
very nice hotels.
yeah, yeah. They're always going to be nice hotels. You know, the type of hotels, 4-star, 5-star that you would be accustomed to in the US, mostly to the type of the Hilton and Marriott chain. There's a few, especially the one in Hurghada that we use because Egypt has their own version of the Hiltons. It's called the Stoneberg or something like that. They own cruises and they own hotels, but it's similar or better quality than the Hiltons in Egypt. Yeah, it's always going to be a hotel with all the amenities that you're accustomed to.
You come home and you're like, oh, could I get no, I'm not at the hotel anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, these guys, they won't even let you push in your own chairs
I know.
It's like we rearranged some furniture on the cruise line to get kind of a circle in the lounge. And when we got up to try to move it back, they just swarmed us and they're like, you go, we got it. And they wouldn't even let us put it back in
I
order.
know.
It's like, okay, I feel bad, but
Yeah. I'm back to being a normal person, not a goddess anymore.
yeah.
Yeah, because
So
people in Egypt do make you feel like you're a true goddess or god. They're so
Mhm.
attentive. They're so nice.
Definitely
Yeah,
friendly.
and so that being said, tips are not included. So they really work really hard for their tip. And I think they're
That's good
not
to
just
know.
looking to make a tip. They also look to make friends. They're so honored that we visit their place, that they're very, very nice. And typically I don't include the tips in the price because, as we know, tips are voluntary and optional, right? It's strongly recommended. And I have a list. I send everybody, a list with recommendations on what to wear, how much money to bring, how much money to pay in tips for whatever reason. That way you will have an idea of how much money you'll need and how much money you need to exchange to be paying for those tips.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Is years ago when I looked into the Egypt trip beneficial if you went as two people? Is that how your trip is? Like if it's not two people, y'all put two people together?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah. We match. We pretty much, because they've met in the workshops and the meetings that we had, they started asking, can I room with this or that person? So it was pretty much that they chose themselves in this trip.
There is also the option to, if you really want your own room, you just pay more.
Exactly.
Yeah. Because years ago when I looked into it, I was like, what's double occupancy? What is it?
Right.
I was like, I never heard of it. That was a long,
Yeah.
long time ago. And then I
Yeah.
found out later on what it meant. I was like, oh, that's what it is.
Yeah. Double occupancy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
better.
If you're willing to share a room, it's this price. If you're going with another person, then you both pay that price. Yeah. And then you share the room. So that was a good point to bring up. If you do want your own room in your own space,
Yeah,
there's
you pay the
another
double.
price for that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's a little higher. Yeah.
Yeah.
My goodness. Well, I think we touched on all the bases, which I think. Was there anything
One
that
more shout out. The trip to Egypt is in January 2025. I think we touched on everything but when it was.
Yeah.
But
I knew there
Yeah.
was something. There's always something we're forgetting, huh?
I know. I was sitting there going, it seems like there's something left out. Like, oh, have we mentioned when it is? Now the dates are escaping me. It was
You had
was it
the date picked out, like beside
Mhm.
January what?
January 11. We
Oh,
start on
okay.
January 11.
Oh,
So
1/1/1.
1/1/1/2025. Yep.
we
Did
like
that?
our numbers. We like our numbers.
We like our numbers.
Tracy,
Yeah.
if I ain't mistaken, 1/1 or 11 was the doors are opening, if I remember correctly from one of your sessions.
Oh, very cool.
Mhm.
Usually I was told by
Those
somebody,
numbers.
it's a screenshot of your mind. It's like make a wish, blow out your birthday candles because they're taking a screenshot of your mind. It's a reminder. What are you thinking about? What are you putting your mind on? That kind of thing. But I like doors opening. We'll take
Yeah,
that.
pretty sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, and a lot of times, like the previous one, we don't realize the date until we realize the date. Like, because we think, okay, this date mostly based on, because the 7-day cruise, they have certain days when they sail. So it has to be on a Saturday or it has to be on a Monday, things like that. And that's what I base the dates off. And then it's like, oh, it's 1/11. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So same thing happened with the other ones. Like, oh, but it was based on when the ship sails, and then I just work around it, and it turns out to be like a really awesome date.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's kind of fun to see the synchronicities play out.
Yeah.
So this is January 11th, 2025, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
Don't ask me why, but I felt like that was a year from now. But I'm like, no, it's not a year.
That's only a few months away.
Yeah.
So
The harsh reality of how fast
my
this year's been
cruise
going.
is January 11th.
Oh,
So I will be going on a cruise out of New Orleans, January 11th.
Nice.
What are the odds of that happening?
You'll be thinking of us in Egypt. That's
Oh,
what
yeah.
That's right.
And we'll be thinking of you on your cruise.
Yeah.
I wonder who's going to have a better time. Yeah, too.
We're all going to have a splendid time because we can
That's
play in
right.
the ethers and share our stories.
That's
Oh,
right.
yeah,
Because
definitely.
we'll astro travel to each other.
Yep.
I get to touch base with some of my Atlantean energy. We're going to the Grand Caymans. So that's one of the stops.
Oh, very nice. You just got back from the trip, right?
Yes, yes. I was about to say we're in the Bahamas. So
Yeah, nice.
my favorite place.
Have you
Love
been
it.
to the Atlantis Hotel in Bahamas?
I've been there, but that's not where I went last time. There's pros and cons. Like, true, it's expensive.
Yeah.
to get in, you got to pay an entry fee. But if you want to gamble, it's free to get in, you know? We kind of been there, checked it out. And if you have kids, yeah, it would make more sense to go. But we kind of go where the local beaches are, the locals go and everything. So we kind of like veer off and go downtown, go to this city part, and then go to the beaches. And it's a lot nicer and steadier, whereas the beaches by Atlantis, because they're on that ridge that faces the Atlantic, that water will beat you up. It'll rock you up. Whereas where we go, there's that whole island strip that blocks all that. And then there's another island that's further out that blocks the water coming in. So it's a lot smoother, a lot steadier. You enjoy it more.
So it sounds like if the audience would like to go to the Bahamas, you are the guy to talk to.
Bingo. I could just point it on a map.
Definitely.
Right there. Go there. Go there.
I think it's called Junkaroo Beach. That's what it's called.
There it is, everybody.
For this Egypt trip, the link will be in the description. And if you listen to this on the podcast, the link will be in the description as well. But you might have to do a cut and paste if the algorithm, well, the coding does not click for you. You have to do a cut and paste of that link. But everybody has Tracy's website down pat, I'm sure.
TracyMeehan.com. Go there. Click the Egypt trip.
Easier.
It'll take you to the site. Absolutely.
Well, I think I'm going to be able to fit everything in. I don't think there's going to be any bonus footages or anything like that. Before I let you go, Laura, do you have someone that lives at your house because you have shadow peoples walking back and forth? Just want to make sure that's a person, not a shadow person.
Yeah, it was my daughter.
You're alone. What do you mean?
Yeah, no.
I was like, Sarah, Laura, is someone there with you?
Yeah, it's the cats and my daughter. She was here for a little bit and she just left and
okay, because she walked across the screen and I'm like, oh, that's not
wearing black, right? I was just
yeah.
Yeah.
Plus she was wearing black, so it even looked more like a shadow.
No, yeah, that's my daughter. I think
we're about to have some bonus footage.
And then when the cats would
Look
come
at
in,
the
they
shadow
almost
person
looked like a statue or something that would just, they also looked a little ghosty or paranormal when they'd come in and out.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's funny.
I wanted to mention that to you. I'm like, yeah, we caught a shadow person going across this, going across the room.
Yeah, she probably like when she notices that I'm in online with somebody or something, she doesn't even come close.
Yeah.
Unless if I feel her, I mute myself and then I look, but I didn't want to do that this time.
Yeah.
So.
It's smart, because I was interviewing one person and like her little son jumped into the video and everything, and then she's like, can you cut that out? I was like, absolutely. But with you got the screen off, it's faded and so on. So
I think it just adds to it. Yeah.
Now, other people are going to be questioning, like, Jason, I think I saw a shadow person walk across the room. And I'm going to have to tell them, no, we talked about it.
I liked it when Buddy climbed up on the couch and just went, phew, just let himself drop on it. And I'm just like, oh my God, everybody had to hear that.
Yeah. No, but same thing happened with Tracy, but I did see something black moving. I'm like, oh my God. But then I saw it was a cat because it actually, I guess it started approaching and then actually jumped on the couch. I was like, oh, okay, it's a cat.
Being a cat.
I know there's always something going on behind me and I'm not always aware of it because I'm so used to it. Blind eye, I guess.
Yeah.
Speaking of cat, isn't the cat behind you, Tracy, sitting behind you in your chair?
Oh, the dog is.
No, in your chair, like. Oh yeah. Oh, it's a dog. I thought it was the cat behind you.
She's like, Mama.
I saw something crawl up there and something got behind you.
She doesn't like us talking about 17-day journeys in Egypt, do you? No.
Oh.
No, Mama. Well, Laura, did you have any questions for me? I think throughout these years I answered all Tracy's questions. Did you have anything that you needed to know from me?
Yeah, actually, I'm curious to find out more about your connection with Atlantis. It's like written all over you, Atlantis. Like, have you ever had any past lives or any dreams or memories being in Atlantis? And if so, like what role did you play? What do you remember about it?
So the interesting thing is Sarah brought up something in one of her sessions, and she said that she saw me in Atlantis, and I had these crystals, and I was healing people, and I was there when Atlantis went down. Now, I never had that session. That was pretty interesting. And then for my past life regressions, I did not go to Atlantis or ancient Egypt. It seemed like colonial times, like British colonial. That seemed like one of them. And then the other one where was that I remember the most was like Western times, like a Clint Eastwood figure.
Oh.
And I just felt like I was there to not record physically, like write it down, record, but like record stuff as in like experiencing, see
Mhm.
it, tasting, touching. So it felt like I was recording stuff and I was experiencing for whatever reason. And then if another thing that was interesting from that session was that I was like, well, that's very familiar because I kind of did that when I was younger, like for some reason the connection was the same. So with Atlantis, I always found it fascinating with Atlantis because even when I was younger, whenever it came up on TV or any of the subjects, I always found it interesting, whether it was Discovery Channel, History Channel, and they brought up Atlantis. I'm like, oh, what's this all about? What are they talking about? So, and I would watch it for however long the episode was. If it was an hour, I would watch it for the hour. And then once when it's over, I just turned it off and went on my day. But I always found it Atlantis information interesting. And then another thing that I always thought was pretty cool was ancient Egypt. I know Tracy mentioned Anubis. A long time ago, I bought a little statue of Anubis on eBay, but that's in the other room. And then I have some like stuff that from my great grandfather when he traveled. So he brought back certain things, and there were some certain things from Karen's family where it wasn't old, it was kind of new, but it's a picture, but it's kind of like it's written on papyrus paper, but it's not, but it looks like it.
Oh.
And it's a drawing, and they were like, "Hey, you want this?" I was like, "Yeah, I'll take that. Shoot, that
Oh,
looks good."
you
Wow.
would love the Papyrus art studio that we went to, man. There was some
Mm-hmm.
really cool stuff there.
Always found it all that information very interesting. And then when Sarah brought up that information, I'm like, oh, that's very cool. That might explain a few things.
Yeah.
And then Tracy nailed the Palladian energy. So she
Yeah.
she knocked that one out the park. So
Mr. Palladian.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And then that lady confirmed, that other person confirmed. I was like, oh boy, yeah, Tracy knocked that one out the park.
Interesting.
I love to see what resonates with what group are you with? What's coming through?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's
That
fun.
was almost the very first session I had with you. Well, collaboration, I should say. It wasn't a session, but it was a video collaboration. And you
Yeah,
brought it
that's
up at
right.
the end, I remember.
Yeah.
You're like, are you Palladian? I'm like, I don't know, but I think so. No one has
Maybe.
ever asked me that.
Yeah. Sometimes that energy comes in really strong. The client I had today, she had a Palladian, she was on a Palladian council, and then her twin flame or soulmate or whatever you want to call the other person was her partner in the Pallades. And so that came through in her ascension session. So that was pretty cool too.
Mhm.
But yeah, those energies can be fun. And when you got somebody that's willing to look at that stuff and get into that and have fun with it, you can really have some powerful sessions and memories come in. So that's pretty cool. I
Yeah.
am totally fading and I haven't eaten dinner, so I'm gonna have to be the one to break up the party, I think.
All right.
Because
Well, if I can share one more thing.
no, gotta go. No.
I know. I'll make it quick. I'll make it so quick. So another thing that I forgot to mention that I mentioned Guardians of Magic, and I was creating it and so on, and I got even more involved in this community. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to be totally different. Totally different. My story is going to be unique. I'm going to start it off in outer space, there's space travel, it's out in space. And I'm like, that's where I'm going to start my story, you know, be very, very different. And I thought this was the book, but this is not the book. But I'm reading one of these books and it's like, yeah, so we're ETs, you know, we're traveling in space and we're going to Earth. And I was like, okay, so I'm reading this book. I already started Guardians of Magic at this time. I already started the story, I already started writing it, already started producing it, and so on. First book's already done. I'm reading this book just to get more information, see what I can find out. And they're like, yeah, we're going to a civilization on Earth and it's Atlantis. I'm like, wait a minute, come on, people. I'm like, I'm the one that was supposed to be unique and different, saying, hey, you know, whole new twist to the idea. And I was like, man,
They
it's
got
already
there
out there.
first. Oh. It's
So,
amazing how that stuff will happen, though. It's like the stories are put out in the ether, and
Yeah.
we're
absolutely.
grabbing them.
So, so you mentioned if I had a past life, I'm not 100% sure. I would assume so, but ideas do come to me left and right. Visions, dreams. When I
Crystal
didn't
beds to create and that kind of thing.
like
Yeah.
one time, it was like 3 o'clock in the morning, and like everything was just downloading. You know how to create it, the characters, images, storyline. It was just like so quick. It was like
Wow.
nonstop. I couldn't sleep for the rest of the night. I was like, I was wide awake because there was so much stuff that came through.
Wow.
Wow.
So
That's kind of cool. People are always like, why don't you write something? I'll sit down. Crickets.
trust me, it did not happen right away now. It took a long
Like,
time. It took months.
Yeah.
Months, and then it just hit. And then once when it hit, that was it. That was like the floodgates open.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it could happen that way. I'll
Very
allow that. Enjoy that. Yes, please.
if you think about it, I don't know what your book would be about, but with your situation, you got a lot of information that's out there on the internet, so you can
Yeah.
easily transcribe some of your sessions.
Oh yeah,
You know?
definitely.
Yeah, I started doing that with like some of the workshop things that I would do, or those journeys. Man, I just can't stick with it. I don't know what my deal is.
You
It's
do have
like
to be
pulling teeth to get me to do it. What's that?
you do have to be a unique individual.
Mm.
Yeah. Well, and to
But
have it transcribed and then you go through and fix all the punctuation,
yeah,
it's just,
you might
Yeah,
have
it's a
to
lot of
be like-
work.
yeah, it's a lot of work.
You might have to be like me, where you have to hire somebody to transcribe.
Yeah.
Because if I was to do everything myself,
Yeah.
it wouldn't
I know.
happen.
I tried doing that with some of my sessions too. It's like, oh my God, I just did this amazing session with this client. And then I start like working on it. It's so much work. It just,
Yeah,
especially
it's
if
just
you
like,
have,
never mind, it's not that cool.
Yeah.
well, it's just
I was telling Julia about, so I had a client come in last week and she was a descendant of Jesus. The next client that comes in was Judas Priest. And then yesterday, my client went into their afterlife and went straight to source. And I'm like, okay, so we had Jesus, Judas Priest, and God. It sounds like a joke ready to play out. But the Judas Priest one was really cool. And I was telling it to Julia and Jenny when I had them on the phone. We were setting up my next level 3 training class, and I was telling them about it, and Julia's like, "Oh, we have those session stories and da-da-da." I'm like, "Oh, hell no, I am not transcribing this shit." It's like, I'll talk about it on the show, but I'm not going to try and write it all out and in that format. That just, that would take hours. And
yeah, it's time consuming. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, don't
Gotcha.
you guys get that it takes hours to do that?
Yeah.
Well, I know I said I was going to be real quick, so I'm sorry that I took a little bit extra of the time, but we definitely have to wrap it up. I'm getting
You're getting the
notice.
Hi, Karen.
She's sleeping.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, we
All
love
right.
y'all.
All right. Well, thank you so
Cool.
much, you
Well,
guys.
Thank you,
you.
Jason. And
Thank you, Jason.
Laura.
Give me
Bye,
a
you guys.
week.
Have a good evening. Get a good
You too.
sleep. No
Absolutely.
3 a.m. calls this morning. You
All right.
get sleep.
All right. Bye.
Later. Take care. Bye-bye.